Hola, Kara.
Hello, hello. Let me go and set you up as a host. 1 second.
Sweet.
I guess I should start by saying I am so glad that I figured out how to do spaces where I'm not losing everybody's reminders. I have gone 10 episodes messing it up. I'm glad that I did it right this time. So,
Oh, okay. So you got a little practice. What happened
well, now
there?
I figured out that when it's time to do the show, I don't have to create a new space. I just go to the space I already created a week ago.
That's right. That's right. Lavendi sent that little video on. Okay, so that's what was happening where you couldn't see. Because I
Mhm.
remember the last time we did it, you couldn't see some of the action that was happening on the space.
That's
That's
exactly what happened. So now it's fixed. It's another glitch that's been taken care of.
You fixed the glitch.
I
Nice.
did. Glitching, I sure did.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I love that when things go wrong and then you finally get it right. It's such a good feeling that you can say, I resolved this issue. We can move forward. It just makes things that much smoother.
Yeah, yeah. You get into this flow, and it's like, okay, sweet. I'm here. I'm here now.
And congratulations, because we are now in the double digits. We reached episode 10.
Man, that's what, 2.5 months
Yeah.
of content and speaking. Yeah, it definitely. I remember being pretty nervous on the first couple spaces that I run. Now I really, I mean, I've looked forward to them even when I was nervous. It's just not being in the rhythm of it, or not being used to speaking. So this
You
is
seem
super
so
cool. Super
natural,
cool.
though.
Yeah, I mean, that's what everyone says. But people, I think, when people get up and speak on stage, they've shared it like, "Oh, I'm not usually nervous, but I'm speaking." It was just not putting myself out there, or speaking. Because I mean, this is considered speaking in public, right? And I have my face on here, so people like that's really me in the picture. So, so I don't want to sound like a fool, and then getting criticized in the beginning from someone who told me that I said like way too much, and it was just because I was excited and way ahead of myself. So,
That was me, head in
oh,
the
that was
sand.
you. That's right. I didn't think I didn't know if I was friends with that person still. So it hurt my
Aw.
feelings. No, I'm just kidding. I took it in stride because in a previous life, 20 some odd years ago, I did. I was a sales trainer and I ran trainings and I did that, but that's not what I've been doing the past 10 years or so. I've been building behind a laptop, and it's just been different. So I appreciated the constructive criticism. That's how I took it. I took it in stride.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad I could help. Communication's a big thing,
It
and I
is.
am so excited to hear everything that you've just experienced because you just got back from London and got to network with all the Kaspa OGs, and you have this incredible photo with the other blockchain banter hosts at what is it, Tokenize with Jonathan. I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, that picture was at Wolfie's bar. It was right at the end when everybody was getting ready to head out. So that's when I had a chance to meet Jonathan. I walked up to him there right towards the end when everybody was getting ready to go, is when we took the pictures and all that. So yeah, so much happened before that. It was a lot, and it went by. I live on the East Coast in Miami. Left on that Sunday, and I had a quick pit stop in Iceland. So I got to have a little layover there, and I flew into London. And
Nice.
getting into London, I had been there before. I went in 2019 for the first time. I actually flew there with an ex girlfriend, and she surprised me by getting me tickets to my favorite football team played there. The NFL plays an overseas game there every single year. So my Buccaneers were there, and they got whooped. But that was 6 years ago, and we did a little pit stop in London, and we weren't there for maybe a day or two, but we did a bunch of little tours there and kind of bougie with it, right? We um, stayed in really nice places and all that. So this time when I got there, I looked up an Uber, and an Uber ride take a lot longer, and I was like, okay, I remember getting on the public transportation before, but I don't think we did it for that long when I was there in 2019. So I said to myself, I'm going to be a local and jump on this Elizabeth line, and it said it was my hotel was about an hour away. So I jumped on it, and I got off at the wrong stop, had to come back, asked for some help, got off at another wrong stop. So I was supposed to get there in an hour. I ended up getting a hotel like maybe 2 hours later, and I passed out. Total of 12 hours flying, and actually did the other show that I'm doing with Bishop, blockchain banter. I'd fallen asleep, and I woke up, Kara, and it was dark out, and I thought to myself, oh shit, I missed the scheduled show that I had with Bishop, and it was only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, man, it gets dark early here. But did that, and then had dinner that night with. So I got to meet. Well, I met her briefly, but didn't really get to talk to her. But I got to meet Caspa Queen in person. Seb,
Awesome.
yeah, Seb was there, and then there were two other individuals. Merlin, who is he was on Blockchain Banter on Monday talking about hackathons. Really, really smart guy, who's been in Caspa like you. He's been in Caspa for quite some time. And then also Elliot. There's not Elliot Maya. There's an Elliot out in Berlin. He's in Germany. I'm not sure if it's Berlin, but got to meet him, and we were there. We all listened into Blockchain Banter on that Monday together, and that's really we had beautiful conversations at dinner, great dinner, and then we got to go to the event the next day. And I walked over there. So Seb and I stayed at the same place and got to walk over, have a conversation with Seb, and that was super cool because I think I've shared it with you with Seb. I'm really excited about what he's doing with Cast Maps. And I woke up one morning. I've been in this energy, Kara, of I've shared that I closed down my business 2 years ago and haven't worked in 2 years. And it's that's why I'm putting a lot of my time with the show and dedicating to anything that I can do within Caspa. But I'm really excited about what Seb's doing. And I woke up one morning thinking I need to talk to Seb. I gotta talk to Seb, and let's just have a conversation and get to know him a little bit. And in that conversation, discovered my skill set kind of complements what he's done. We have somewhat similar backgrounds. He was really successful with what he did before he found crypto. And I don't know if you remember this, but Seb owned altcoin.com, and he sold that a while back. But Seb's been in the space for quite some time, and Seb's the one who organized the Bitcoin debates. Organized a lot of the speakers and all that, and he doesn't talk about that. But I just
Cool.
got to know him, and it was just super cool to spend all that time with him. So I went with him to the Tokenize event, and as soon as we get there, there were it's all Wolfie, who's a really big dude. He's like 6'6", 6'7". He's just a big guy.
Wow.
Yeah, from Wolfie's Bar, right? And the brothers were there, Chris Hutchison, Tom, gave him big hugs. Lavendi, obviously, um, Caspa Queen, Elliot from the night before, Merlin. Oh, Merlin is kind of again talks about the hackathons. He spoke on the spaces on Monday, but I haven't heard him much on panels or anything like that. And he was probably the most aggressive in getting people to come. People are walking by like, "Hey, come over," and he was just always talking to somebody. But what was super cool, Kara, was the energy there. It just the entire time that we were there, there were people walking up to the booth. The energy was palpable. It's just different being at a Caspa event. I obviously had the privilege of being in Berlin as well, and that was the first Caspa event that I'd been to like that. Actually, not true. I was at a Miami event down here in 2024 that I went to briefly, but I know, I didn't have an X account or anything, and I acted like I didn't meet anybody. I just went to observe. So, and this one, I obviously was mingling, and yeah, there were people that walked up to the booth and wanted to know about Caspa. There was I had a couple great conversations with. There was this one. young guy who was a he considered himself a Bitcoin maxi, but we got into talking about Austrian economics, Keynesian economics, and I gave him a little bit beneath the surface view on Caspa and how the energy of it is what called to me. And yeah, we got into it. We probably ended up talking for about an hour there at the booth, and then before you know it, again, it was like that the entire time. You saw the pictures. Those pictures were, I didn't even see people taking the pictures. I was in the middle of conversations the entire time. And before you knew it,
Speaking of, speaking of
Giannis,
there's
yeah.
pictures of you at the booth, and you're speaking with several people in the Caspa booth, and there's side by side photos that people could see the energy at the Caspa booth and how empty and no energy it was at the traditional banking booth. Can you talk about that? What was that
Yeah.
like?
Well, I mean, so the setup there, I didn't get a chance to walk around. I did want to. I wanted to walk around and see how things were going, but the way it was set up, we were right in the center of it, I believe, somewhere in the middle, and literally no time to go for me to walk around. I know Chris mentioned he had a chance like to go and see. He's the one that took the picture of, for example, I think it was the London Bank, if I'm not mistaken, and then and he took the picture, a live picture of us, and then put that post up. So yeah, it was pretty interesting how that happened, and people kept walking up to the booth because there was so much action. People were talking to each other the entire time at the Caspa booth. And I remember having a conversation with this one couple. They were like, "Okay, so you guys work for Caspa?" And we're like, "No, no, Caspa isn't. It's not. It's not a company. It's a cryptocurrency. I paid for my own flight to get out there. Right? The KEF sponsored the booth and everything, but none of us were paid. There was no scripts, obviously, about bringing
Oh,
people up to the booth. I didn't even, when I went there, it was okay. I'm going to mix and mingle, kind of network, and but it was pretty cool how it worked out where we were at the booth just having people come up and ask us. So but I've worked booths before selling products, right? I did it when I sold Cutco when I was a lot younger, and you typically have to get people to come up, right? And then once there's a person up, you kind of get a crowd. But it was just so cool how that just happened organically. And other booths, I personally didn't look around because I was talking the entire time, running my mouth and in conversations with people. So I kind of saw it the way people on X side, where the pictures showed. Okay, yeah, we were pretty busy. I felt it being there. So yeah, that was again, the energy was palpable, and it's like that at a Caspa event. I mentioned this on the Monday blockchain banner, but I don't even know. I don't. We've talked about this too. I don't look at the price of Caspa, and that's one of the cool things that I love about this community. I get we care about that, but it's not at the core of what Caspa is. And even bringing it up with people that were interested in learning about it, there were a couple times I had conversations with Seb, and we would go back and forth on educating people on what Caspa is, and Seb would kind of do it his way. Oh, and the second I did go back the second day, and I was wearing a Caspa shirt. The one that I got in New York, from Caspa funding. It's a pretty cool like teal shirt that has the Caspa block tag. So Seb, I'd be talking to somebody, and three or four times he's like, Juan, let me see the shirt. And he'd be in the middle and he'd be pointing out the Caspa block tag. So I thought that was funny, like in the middle of me speaking with somebody else. So yeah, it was cool and all that, and that we got to walk over and I think Jonathan came to the booth for a little bit before his talk, and a couple people got pictures with him and whatnot. But I was in the middle of conversations that entire time, and then we got to hear his talk, which was great. A lot of people showed up for that, and there were even people like waiting in the back, trying to get seats. So a little section cut off there for us to listen to Jonathan, and Junie from the KEF spoke as well. So that was cool. And then
hold up,
after,
hold up, hold up, hold up, hold
go
up.
ahead.
You can't just glaze over Jonathan showing up. Let's
Oh
go
well,
back
to
to
me, he's
Jonathan
just
showing up.
another member of the community.
He
So yeah,
is,
whatever. You
but
gotta you gotta stop me.
he also created. the solution to the trilemma.
Oh, that
So
is that
when he
him?
showed
Okay,
up,
I didn't understand the big deal, the big circle around him. I just
w-
I treat him like somebody else.
well, people put their pants on one leg at a time, but
Okay.
at the same time, here's a guy who he had an opportunity to go to this event in what was it, Dubai, and he turned down Binance to be with the Kaspa family, to be with the
Mm.
people who stood behind him since the beginning. He made that choice to be with Caspians and the Kaspa OGs rather than shaking hands with people who kept snubbing him and snubbing the community. So he did that, I think, out of not just wanting to talk, but to show where his allegiance really is. And did you feel that sense from him when he was
Absolutely,
mingling?
absolutely. I posted it in my tweet how just his energy, right? I'm a big energy guy, so I don't need people to talk for me to kind of that's why for me being in person and seeing people in person is where I really get my assessment of people. So a big part of why I wanted to go to these events is to feel that because I've been to a bunch of Bitcoin events over the years and that it's again I don't look at it from a negative perspective. It's just different. It's just different going to a Caspa event. So yeah, to answer your question, I didn't get a chance. I mean, he right after his talk, for example, there was a big circle around him. I know Pavel and him were going at it. I was listening in right next to it, and like I remember Seb standing there and a few other people that were just intently listening and they just went on they were talking for about an hour um just them two back and forth with a big circle around them and we've seen what's materialized. I believe they were talking about a lot of the things that we've seen posted on X
Yeah.
with the eager and all that and they were getting
Oh,
clarity on each other's roles within what what they're working on what they're building. So to me, it sounded like a bunch of nerd talk. So I was sitting there. For example, I think during that time I was talking to Crypto Goon Boy, I think is his name. But
hmm.
for example, I'd been messaging him, and he's run some spaces. He's out there in London, I believe, as well. And I got to talking to him, and somebody else. I can't. He's also anonymous. I want to say Castle Full Face. So I was talking to those guys and standing next to him, and and then other people would walk up to Jonathan, and you could he just has very chill, real authentic energy.
Nice.
That's what I sense from him, right? And I didn't get my opportunity to say anything to him until like I told you here at the beginning, at the end of the night. And I walked up to him, but even before that, to kind of recap a little bit there. But yeah, to answer your question again, his energy is just so chill. You can just tell it's very authentic, and that's what I feel. That it's you feel it when he speaks, right? And to me, a great example of an interview that I've heard from him over and over. I've heard it. I want to say two or I've listened to it twice all the way through, but I go back all the time and listen to bits and pieces of it. That interview that he had with Vlad on the Bitcoin Takeover podcast, the one that
Right.
was 7.5 hours.
I remember.
You get a lot of, I mean, 7.5 hours sitting with somebody and the stuff that they talked about. So, I mean, I sensed it there too. That's one of my favorite interviews of him. Um, in big part because of you can kind of you get a little taste of his humor. It's just very subtle. That's when we learned about his turtle, Bitcoin, right? Um, and that's how it is. That it's very consistent in person. Is what I felt being around him. So, yeah, I had a chance at the end of the night, and I shared with you in conversation in our little chats that I had to. Well, I didn't know if I was gonna say it. I told you that I was gonna go and tell him, but and it was a little bit.
Let's talk about that. So tell us about that. So let's give context before we get into this so
Okay,
that people
yeah, do
know.
it.
So the
Yeah.
context is I've had a conversation with Jonathan where he told me he loves it when people tell him to go F himself. And I found it shocking because I have such deep respect for him. And so I was laughing hysterically with him. And I said, "Really?" And he thought it was great that Onion would go online and say, Jonathan can go F himself. And so he just thought that was the coolest thing. And so when everything went down with Unchained and he wanted me to lower my IQ, and I ended up, well, basically just not doing what made the community happy, even though Jonathan thought it was pretty cool. Uh, I had people say, well, why don't you just go tell Jonathan to F himself? And so I had Juan go to the event and tell Jonathan to F himself. So that's the context, okay? So
Well,
I knew going into it he'd be cool with it. I'm not doing this because I don't respect him. So Juan, tell us what happened.
do it for him. I think in conversation and us talking about it, because I got a little backlash too. I think the big tweet that really had people go south and judge us and say what they were saying, right? Because I got a couple spammers and people and some hate from it, and I don't get too much of that within the Caspa community. I haven't gotten that. I only got it from that tweet that I put up, and I sent a picture of my friend, dressed in a robe, and said that after the Satoshi had K'd himself, the tweet there or the picture, and then it was retweeted, and it wasn't nice. So I felt some of that energy, and me being who I am, I am a protector of my people, and you're my people. I see Caspa
Thank
people as
you.
my people, so it's like I'm gonna defend. I'm just a defender. I'm the oldest of three. Is just how I am. So that I'm just built this way. And I, obviously it wasn't easy for you going through that, but once we talked about it and you shared your part of it, I always try to see perspective on both sides. And yeah, you told us that that Caspa Onion had said that, and you're like, Jonathan would love that. So I'm like, oh, maybe I go tell him that when I meet him. So that was kind of the energy that I had behind it, and I didn't plan on. But at the end of the night, tap him. I'm like, hey, my name's Juan. I go, I'm Juan. I host blockchain banter with Kara. And the cool thing is this, and I shared this with you, was what he said after I said that. So I introduced myself and I said, I host blockchain banter with Kara. The first thing he goes is Kara still mad at me? That's what he said. It's like, is Kara
Jonathan,
and by
I'm
the way, so
living
so
rent free.
as I'm describing that, again, I remember smiling and being like, that's pretty fucking cool that he just asked that. That just, obviously we should never deify people, but people have deify, like Onion deifies Jonathan, and we get to hear some of
Yeah,
the shit that he says in private. It's pretty hilarious. But
yeah,
people deify him, right? And it's like I don't,
yeah,
I don't see him like that, and he's just another person. But again, he did, solve the trilemma, like you said, so it's a big deal. But I thought that that was such a beautiful human response, and in the post that I have pinned up, and that just made me respect him on another level. So I was like, oh well, yeah, I go, it's all good. We talked about it, we understand, and but I did tell Kara that I'd come up here and tell you to go fuck yourself. And when and when I said it, he kind of like, oh, so Elliot Maya was standing there, and Elliot kind of looked at me, and it was a little bit awkward, but then I was like, I kind of tapped him in the shoulder. I was like, oh, but obviously, just a joke. Like we're all good. We're
yeah.
all good. And then then we kind of went to the side there, and he goes, I didn't even. So and this is where I shared with you, where I can see how he's just in this bubble of building, and I could, so this is another part that I could relate to, right? Being someone who is so entrenched in what they're doing and you just block everything out, right? I think a lot of times we think he's on there checking what people say, and you even shared, he probably looks outside of Caspa for inspiration and what he does. But he told me, he's like, I didn't even see what happened until 2 days later. Um, but I was he was so literally, it seemed like he was surprised that the Casper community would react that way. He thought that they would like it and think it was
Yeah,
funny. I go, yeah, yeah, they're just not, some of us did think it was funny. It's just they're just or people just aren't ready for that just yet,
yeah,
and again, understanding both sides, Kara, I understand why people were offended, right? We get it
yeah,
now. We've moved past it. But again,
yeah. And
yeah,
can I just add one? Um, so just so people know, Jonathan and I are doing good. We're doing well with each other, and we're actually playing chess together online. And for now, I'm kicking his ass. but we'll see how it ends. So he and I are just having a friendly game, and I completely expect to lose. But if I don't, I get bragging rights forever. And yeah, I'm having fun with it. And it's just kind of our way of saying, hey, everything's cool between us. So, me and Juan and the whole F yourself, it's all in good fun. So, no one
Nice.
don't get your panties twisted or anything like that. Because Lord knows people can take things all sorts of different ways. This is just how we banter with one another.
Exactly, exactly. Because yeah, at the end of it, he said he did say, let her know I'm sorry for how it worked out. I didn't realize he hadn't talked to you or anything like that. But again, just the human side of it, he seemed like a cool, chill guy. And
Oh, yeah,
yeah, and
totally.
like I said earlier, I get a good feel for people in person because I'm the same guy that you're listening to right now on this this blockchain banner. This is how I am in person. So I don't know how to be any other way. I know that people are really good at playing characters and shit like that. I used to, people go through phases like that, but that's one of the really cool things that I felt about him, and I felt it.
Yeah.
I felt it within this Caspa community to begin with. It's what it's like speaking to most people within the community. You get truth. You get truth seekers. I mean, the phrase that I say, right? Like Caspa's vibrating at the frequency of truth seekers, and I don't know. I dream about Caspa and what's happening within the ecosystem, and I wake up thinking about it. I think about it most of the day, and this is cool. This is fun. This is how I get excited about things, and I only have like one speed, and I know that I'm in the right place, and it's always worked out in my favor one way or the other, right? And it was super cool. It's super cool being there. It's only the well, I guess the third Caspa event that I've been to, and it's well, I shared with you before. For me, I'm going to be moving out of the place that I've been living in for the past almost 4 years, and I want to travel around and meet more people in person. So I don't know what that's going to look like, Kara. I don't know if it's, hey, do I set up events and get to meet people in different cities? But I think the in-person events for Casper are super important. And I even want to talk to, and this is something that kind of came up for me on the way back. And I did a lot of writing, and I'm just excited. I'm excited for where this is going, right? And what we're building within the community. And I see my role. I see what I'm good at and how I can contribute. So a big part of that is being on these spaces, giving people platforms, learning from people because I've shared I'm not the technical guy. I understand a lot more than I did just 4 or 5 months ago when I started talking on here. But this is so exciting. And going to these events it just gives you that extra juice that and I want to, again, I just know how important it is, the in-person events. I know some people want to stay anonymous, like you've talked about how that's important for yourself, and respect that 100%. But there's a lot of people that want to mix with some other Caspians, in person. And I don't know, maybe I do a little tour around the country, around the world, and help with that. We'll see.
It looks like you're. I was gonna say. I'm gonna change what I was gonna say. People have a worry that Caspa's not getting enough adoption, but we have Juan. We don't
I
have to
have put
worry about it.
60. Like, I'm not joking. I have these pictures. So once I get to 100, I'm gonna make a post out of it. But you don't even want to know where my goals go.
Yeah,
I mentioned
you're
before,
gonna onboard a million
I don't
people.
like setting goals because I don't like putting caps, limits on myself. And I've done some crazy shit in my life. Like, I've defied odds left and right my entire life. So that's really sweet of you to say. Um, I think I'm a reflection of all the people within the community. And I know it's not about me. It's really about, I see the gift that I've been given and how fortunate I am in life, and also plays into doing the show with Bishop on Tuesday live on the Casper Standard. We talked about sports the first hour of that, and we talked about Caspa, but there's just so much to do within this community. And we had a conversation before we hopped on here. You mentioned that you're building some things out, and um, there's just you learn something new every single day, and this is the place to be, and it's super super amazing that there's literally something different to talk about within Caspa every single day. Every single day, there's something new, something happening, and you know that's because of the beautiful foundational layer of what Caspa is. We've never had anything like this ever, and we're just getting a little taste of it. We're the early adopters, right? That's how I see it.
That's definitely true. And yeah, I am working on some things of my own. I don't know if we want to kind of go in that, but
Yeah, we
I am
should.
exploring I'm exploring smart contracts right now, and I've published a lot of books, self-publishing for myself and my dad and a few others and different artists and authors. And I've been looking into this idea of creating a way for authors to have another way of getting paid royalties for their books, their ebooks, through a platform where I use Caspa as a way where we can do multi-sig, where one author, for instance, gets 95% royalties and then 5% goes to the platform. And I'm currently building that. I'm playing with it. I'm tinkering with it. But I started getting a little in over my head because I decided I don't just want to do Caspa. I'm going to use now payments where I can accept all crypto and then I get paid in Caspa no matter what people pay with. And so I have integrated that with WooCommerce, which integrates as a plugin with WordPress. And in order for me to accept things such as credit card, I have to get special approval through Stripe. And for me, it's a little complicated because I'm in the Safe at Home program and I've recently had a name change and I have a government assigned address. And so my situation's a little more special.
Mhm.
And so it's going to take a little bit more time to get that approval so they can prove I am who I am for those purposes. But eventually, I'd like to be able to accept debit card, Apple Pay, Google Pay, all crypto. Well, and when I say all crypto, I really mean basically the top 3 to 500 cryptos, including Caspa. And then I would get paid in Caspa if they're paying with crypto, and I would get paid directly to my bank account if they're using fiat. So I'm trying to set something up that benefits authors as well as me as a platform. So I'm kind of tinkering with something right now.
Yeah, that's super dope, and that's exactly what I'm speaking to. There's so much potential with this, and I learned about. I wasn't aware of now payments. That's pretty cool that there's a platform like that that accepts all these cryptos, and you can determine if you want to accept it within Caspa. So I took a look at it. I think that's a pretty neat little tool there. So yeah, it's beautiful. I think that's awesome. You have that idea, and I mean, you're a busybody. You're always doing something. We
Sure.
have Kara too, you know, for the adoption.
Yeah, you get them adopted by talking with them, and I get them adopted by shit posting.
Teamwork makes the dream work. It's all important.
That's right. Well, some of it's shit posting. I kind of mix it up. Some of it's educational, some's entertainment, some is just whatever. For me, the way that I see it, when I'm on X, I kind of just want to be authentic and leave room for unpredictability because predictability bores the fuck out of me and other people. And if I keep it unpredictable, it just kind of keeps the energy interesting. And the more interesting it is, I think it just drives more engagement and curiosity. And for me, it leads to more conversations with people who may not have heard about Caspa just because I'm being unpredictable. For instance, even though I mostly talk about Caspa, I'm sure some of you may have seen my replies on your timeline where I'm posting something that has nothing to do with Caspa. For instance, uh, reposting a random act of kindness, and I have a comment where I'm saying, I'm in tears. This is so sweet. right? I do that a lot, and it's just because those are videos I like to see, and they're videos I enjoy commenting on. And it has nothing to do with Caspa, but what it does is it shows the human side of the fact I'm not a robot. I have feelings. These are things that I find beautiful. And if I'm able to reach people who have feelings about something, it's just another way of humanizing who we are as people and going into it without people feeling there's some agenda. So that's one reason why I kind of mix up my posts and keep it unpredictable.
Yeah, and I enjoy those posts. You've tagged me on a few. It's been a while. How come I haven't got any tags in a minute? But like you would, because we've talked about my plant medicine journey, and I remember you tagging me on a few things that tugged at the heart. I enjoy those too. I don't really look for them as much, but I'm cool with you tagging me on it when you do. So just let me
Yeah.
know.
Oh, I see them and feel them all the time. Focused on things that are more dystopian rather than high energy and high frequency.
Hmm.
I've been really kind of focused on the state of affairs when it comes to stealthiness and surveillance and just the dystopian big brother stuff that's going on. I mean, I even looked at an MIT experiment where I learned that tinfoil hats are not effective against telepathy. In fact, they actually increase the ability of the government to read your mind with radio waves. And so I found out that copper and nickel are more effective. And I looked into the price of Faraday fabric to make my own tinfoil hat that has no tinfoil, that has copper and nickel and all this other stuff. And I thought, well, I don't know who to tag about this. But then I did. I tagged I think I tagged Buffalo or Seb because we get into that the creepy stuff.
Buffalo would like that. I can see Buffalo getting into that with you. He loves that.
Yeah, and he sends me links to Illuminati stuff because he knows that that's the kind of creepy stuff I like to watch too.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds like you. That sounds like Buffalo. Makes sense.
But life is a wave, and sometimes I need to get away from that darkness, and I'll go look into something that's more light, and then I'll tag you with that. And if I see something that's just funny and stupid and smart and crazy and whatever, I'll just send it to Onion because I know he'll laugh at it, and it can be whatever the fuck.
Yeah, that's
And
funny. That's funny. Yeah, I go to I think it's cool when sometimes I obviously see all the posts that Onion puts up there or whenever you guys are going at people and I really don't participate, but every now and then I'll get in there and then I'll share with you guys. And you're right, you got to switch it up, right? It can't be the same thing
yeah,
all the time. You got to show the other side. And I always think it's cool that people are like, "Oh, Juan's finally bringing that out." I'm like, "Okay, I have this in me. Trust. You don't want me to bring it all the way out all the time. It's just
yeah.
I'm a little grown and mature, and it's like I can't stay in that frequency the entire time.
But we love
This
that
whole
you
Zen
have it.
yoga headstand wand has not existed the entire time. Trust me, I played football for fucking 9 years. I was pretty intense.
You
Most
have the
people didn't like that
strength.
version of me. Yeah.
And you have that strength of a gentle giant, and a giant when poked can show its rage. But the thing is, you're a gentle giant. You only lash out if provoked or in a way you feel the need to defend yourself or others. But you don't
Exactly.
just go around lashing out at people. That's just not your
I
style.
do not. I do not. Yeah, but every now and then it comes out. What's funny actually, I don't know if you got the did you get the text I sent you on one of the Bitcoin
Yeah.
influencers? Yeah, so I thought that was interesting because I see him kind of in that same energy. And when I met him, I don't know if I should mention
Well,
this.
don't you tell people? Yeah, tell people what you're talking about
Yeah,
because you
so
say him.
yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting. It happened a few hours before we hopped on the show. I shared it with Onion and Kara. So at the beginning of this year, I was fortunate enough to meet really big time Bitcoin influencers. You know, they're pretty. One of them's not active on X anymore. The other one is, and he's blocked quite a few of us Caspians. But he has over, I think, over 500,000 followers, and his name's Robert Breedlove. He runs the What Is Money show, and he's somebody I really looked up to. I remember talking to Onion about him too, because I know Onion got blocked by him, and I got blocked by him on X. But it was weird because I have met this guy. I met him earlier this year. Met him during a yoga class, and it bothered me that he blocked me because like we have each other's phone numbers. We were supposed to meet up here in Miami, um, and I understood the other people, but again, we've been preemptively blocked, right? That happened in the community. It was maybe it's not happening so much anymore, but it definitely was something that was really active. So um, today I just went on my Instagram account, and one of the videos that I put up before I was talking here on X was about how he interviewed this gentleman named Matthew Manning, and I'm friends with Matthew Manning now. I literally, after hearing them on the What Is Money show, I reached out to Matt Manning because he was on X. He had, not a well known guy, but I reached out on X, and I just let him know that I really appreciated his interview with Breedlove, and he responded back. And Matt and I are friends now. Um, and I had met Robert again earlier this year. I met him during a yoga class randomly. But going back to speaking about Jeff Booth to kind of tie that together. So I went to Colombia to a Bitcoin conference in January of this year. And I specifically went because I wanted to meet Jeff Booth and have a talk with him. And when I met him, it was just a beautiful conversation. I love his whole thing about, I actually speak comes from a lot of what he talks about, where the natural state of the free market is deflationary and all that. So I had a really great conversation with Jeff. We exchanged numbers. I even let him know, like, hey, I was kind of putting together a book. He gave me his number, said, hey, yeah, let me know if you need anybody to look over it. So we hit it off, and that literally that week, 3 days later, I'm doing a yoga class here in Miami, and I run into Robert Breedlove, and so at the end of the class, I go, I obviously have to walk up and say hello to Robert Breedlove. So I walk up to him and I go, hey Robert, I'm supposed to my name's Juan, I'm supposed to meet you today. And he was like a little bit startled, but I go, yeah, I was just at a Bitcoin conference in Colombia. And again, we hit it off, we talked, and at the end of it, I actually found out that he was gonna go do his first plant medicine ceremony. He was gonna go do ayahuasca for the first time. And I've shared that I've sat with that medicine 10 times. And I knew right there, I go, okay, that's why I met you. So I believe that the medicine kind of put us together in that moment. I don't, synchronicities are like that. And it was cool. Again, he's the one that asked me for my number. He shared a couple things. I shared some stuff about my dad. I let him know that I'd like rekindled the relationship with my dad earlier this year. Now it's obviously super beautiful, and a 69-year-old man who's grown leaps and bounds in a year, Kara. That's a whole nother beautiful story in itself, in that relationship and what I have with him now. But so Robert and I hit it off, and we'd been talking up through when all of this happened. With the Bitcoin Kaspa events, I was going to go to an event down here, but once that started, once the Kaspa Bitcoin debates happened in July, I opened up my X account, and I started talking. I put a post up, and that's kind of how I got connected to everybody. And I organized my first spaces with I did it with Onion and Nakasompo, um, and that kind of took off, and people started following, and then I just started doing spaces from there. And obviously the Bitcoin stuff was pretty intense back then in like July. I think way more so intense than it is now. And yeah, like I had been following Robert on X, but I never interacted on X. Again, I had his message. We would text back and forth, and then I just noticed like one day that I was blocked. I'm like, what the fuck is this? So that bothered me. I remember sharing it with Matt. I go, what is this? And I let it roll off, but it did bother me. It bothered me that he blocked me because this is someone, again, I met him and thought we were cool, and I was just like, what is that about? And I really do think it's an active campaign by Bitcoiners to shut us up. Um, so anyways, so today I go on my Instagram, and the video that I posted, I'd taken it down, but I archived it. One that I did way back in June. But I posted it back up, and then I wrote this long. I go, I'm just gonna write and let people know that Robert Breedlove, after saying what I said about Breedlove, that he blocked me. So I write that, and Robert responded to it, and he started following me on Instagram, and he's like, "Hey, brother, great to see you again. Great to see what you're doing, something like that, and keep being the change that you want to see in the world." And then he followed me. And I noticed we have a couple of, well, he actually follows the yoga instructor that in the class that we met, so I'm really obviously really good friends with her. But I'm not sure if it was a bot or if it was Robert. You know, he has a big account on X, and I don't have a lot of followers on Instagram or anything like that. That's a personal account or whatnot. But I thought that was interesting, right? That he circled back and actually took the time to respond to me. So I don't know. Maybe it says something about where these Bitcoin influencers are with things, and maybe that speaks to some of them doing some research. I can tell you that there's other. I won't name any names because they've asked not to, like, for me to say anything publicly. But there's other guys that I know, like a Robert, that are buying Caspa. They just, they've built their brands around Bitcoin, and they it's not safe for them to say anything. They will be ostracized. But they got a little bit of Caspa, you know. Um, and I think that's how this is going to play out. That's how that's exactly what I'm seeing as a trend within. Because I had Robert was a friend. Again, met Jeff Booth. I've met a lot of these guys. And but yeah, I thought that was really cool in terms of what happened with Breedlove, and that he responded to me on Instagram, knowing that, like, I'm obviously a Caspa guy and running these spaces, and he actively blocked me on X for no reason. Um, so yeah, that's the story. That's what went down.
Well, it's good that he had a change of heart and really maybe thought about why he would block someone just because they invest differently. Caspa is sound money. Some people use it as an investment. Some people use it because they just need the network for its protocol for whatever reason, whether it's tracking energy or using it for secure encrypted messaging or for some other reason. There's a lot of reasons people would use the protocol. So for someone to have a change of heart and say, you know what, maybe even if it was, I'm assuming it was really him and not a robot, but if it was him, it'd be good overall if he had a change of heart, just thinking about this is someone I did yoga with. This is someone I spoke with. This is someone I was cool with. And now I'm going to rethink this. I'm glad he unblocked you. I'm glad that there's a moving forward happening. I like that.
Yeah, that's what it felt like, right? And going back to the medicine that I've done, that's very, very deeply ingrained into my system. Um, I know that he's done a couple ceremonies since then, and I really do think some of it is that. And I do think that that medicine and what's happening and how it's, because another thing too, it's like ayahuasca and plant medicine is, and all that psychedelics are being looked at nowadays completely differently than it was just 10, 15 years ago, and obviously in just a completely different light. Um, and I noticed it was being more commercialized, but I do think some of that has to play with it, because that's kind of what I felt with Robert. Like when I met him in a yoga class, right? Like we were two of there was it was a class of there was other like 25 other women, and we're the two biggest dudes in there. He's a pretty big guy too. So I just don't think that it was a coincidence that I met Jeff Booth that week, and then Robert Breedlove, and like I'm in this deep rabbit hole within Bitcoin, and I'm actively going out trying to meet people and really understand this ecosystem and what it's about. And I think it speaks to that, Kara. I think it speaks to a lot of this divisiveness within the space. And I don't, again, I'm newer to this, but I think that all this shit needs to go by the wayside, and we need to realize that we're all in this together, right? Yeah, talk. The original mission was for this to bank the unbanked and help people that don't have hope out there. And it's not just about making money. um, People still kind of look at this as an investment, but I think it speaks to that. I think it speaks to the energy that we're moving towards there. And Breedlove being who he is, he's put a lot of people on to sound money. He obviously is a Bitcoiner. I mean, the guy has a Bitcoin tattoo on his right bicep. But that dude, I respected him so much. And that's why I felt it when I got blocked. Like, I don't care if other people that I've never heard of have done it, but somebody that I met, that we exchanged phone numbers, we exchanged energy like that. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said it didn't bother me, and it had bothered me. So for me, it was a little bit of a dump to just like, okay, or go back to Instagram. And again, I don't have a big account. I didn't even have Instagram before, so I follow people that I actually know on there, and they follow me back, and it was cool. Like, it was cool that he followed me back on Instagram, right? It's just like, he's a big account, he doesn't follow that many people. So yeah, I think it says something, right? There's something there, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It does feel good, no doubt. Who knows what it leads to?
One of the things that people were talking about while the Tokenize event was happening in London, online, the community was alive with this feeling of, hey, those are my people. I know these people that are over there. And there was more activity socially as people talked about Caspa. It was very a buzz, you'd say. And I think there was probably more adoption during that event. I think it brought more people on board. And of course, the Bitcoiners, they always have something to say. And the currently the FUD that I've been seeing has not necessarily been from Bitcoiners this time, which is so odd. But since the event, for me, most of the FUD has been coming from other coins, such as Nano, or um, even Soul a little bit, which is odd.
Yeah.
Um, but I have not seen Bitcoiners be the way they have been, and maybe it's because their price has kind of gone down, and maybe they just don't feel like being as mean and just randomly blocking people and all of that. I'm not feeling it as strongly as when Bitcoin was at 120,000, right? I feel like it's kind of dying down just a little bit. And I think that this is, in my opinion, I think this is the perfect time for those conversations to take place when maybe they're a little bit more open to the idea of what sound money can look like that might be different than what they had in mind as being the one and only immaculate coin of the universe. And over the last 2 weeks, there's been sort of a narrative shift with Lightning. And I got to give Caspa Onion credit for this. He really started talking about the, what it's going to cost for Bitcoin to keep up with its own sustainability. That with every halving, it's going to need to double in price. And that with every year, because of Lightning, Bitcoin's going to have to do 19%. These were Onion's numbers, but he said 19% a year just so they can stay afloat. And if you look at this from a business perspective, that's a huge pressure to put on any company. So to ask that of a decentralized project is a lot. And to put this in perspective, I've been watching all these Hallmark movies and crying over these Christmas movies all day, every day. I've just been doing this a lot. There was a Christmas movie, one of those Christmas Carol Scrooge visit your past, present, future ghosts, and it has the CEO. And she, as a CEO, had a goal of 20% increase for her business. And she said, you know what? I shot too high. I was expecting too much from people. I shouldn't have asked for 20%. And yet Bitcoin is saying it needs to do 20% a year. And that's a lot. It's a lot. And I think that that narrative needs to be said. And not only that, and I'm glad Onion's here as a speaker now. One thing that he has said that's got me really thinking about it is Lightning can't handle all the people who suddenly may want to use their money at the same time. And Bitcoiners, when they're giving their Fed, are saying, well, if you're using Lightning, you can get paid when you're closing a channel or opening a channel. But that could take years before you close the channel. So a miner might not get paid for years. I mean, that's crazy. And then they don't get paid anything for all the things that happen on the channel that are not at the beginning and the end. And one Bitcoiner, this is so funny to me, he said that Bitcoiners do not want that many transactions. So, on one hand, we have people who are Bitcoin OGs, such as Natalie Brunell, who says, Bitcoin is for everyone. I wrote a book. It's called Bitcoin is for everyone. And then you have another Bitcoiner who says, we don't want that many transactions. So, which is it? Is it Bitcoin is for everyone, or is it we can't do that many transactions? Which one is it? And the fact that they can't have both is it's a flaw in their system. It's a flaw.
Yeah,
And yeah, and now for me that just makes Caspa such a beautiful alternative for what they keep trying to push as their answer to their problem, which is so flawed on many levels. But yeah, I'd like to hear more from Onion if he's willing to talk about it because this narrative really shifted from the Tokenize event to now. And I gotta give Onion a lot of credit for that because he did the numbers and he really focused on this and got a lot of us thinking about it. So yeah, I'd like to hear from Onion if that's all right.
yeah, I'd like to hear from him too. And I want to second everything that Kara said there, Onion. Before you come up, because you're right, Kara. I've noticed that shift, and even for me, man, I love how when we do hear from Onion, he gives us this knowledge, and you've done this. I want to highlight the spaces that you've done by yourself. I don't know how many you've done, but I think I listened to two of them. But when you get on there and you share with us your knowledge, you were a Bitcoin. I mean, you were a Bitcoiner, I guess, for 8 years, and your depth and what you know and how you break it down has it make sense for someone like me, big time, man. So I appreciate how you bring the numbers, and to second again what Kara's saying, the way you do it, it's so important. So obviously, I know you're going to keep doing it, but I wanted to, of course, give my 2 cents and let you know how much I appreciate you schooling us. So thank you, and yeah, I'll turn over the mic to you.
Hey, hell yeah. Thank you all so much. Those very kind words, very kind words. I appreciate it. First thing for I'm just an onion, so I'll do my best. But yeah, I mainly just requested to speak just in case, but yeah, everything you were saying, Kara, I think is spot on. Um these Bitcoiners, there's so much inconsistency. You'll have half the community say they're literally Bitcoiners, like Fred Krueger, that guy. He literally said like, "Oh, mining's a competitive industry. You don't want miners. You want them to die off." It's that doesn't make any sense. And then you have the other part of the Bitcoin community saying, "We need small people mining, so we invented the bit axe," right? So if you look at half the Bitcoin community, they don't want miners. The other half wants miners. And then for every topic discussion point on Bitcoin, you'll always see like if you were to put all these Bitcoiners together, they all have conflicting beliefs. Whether it comes to the whole world's going to use Lightning or no one's going to use Lightning, they'll be using banks or um you know I'm losing my train of thought here, but basically yeah, conflicting beliefs all across the board. These people make no sense. And if you run the numbers, what I was doing, the reason I run the numbers, I could be totally wrong in everything I share, but I'm just running the numbers from my own selfish gain because, or just I'm trying to take care of myself. I have, I just don't want to lose my money. And if I'm operating on a ledger that's about to implode in on itself, I need to know that. And so I'm like, okay, well, what's the risk? If the risk of imploding in on itself is minimal, then I don't need to worry, right? But when I ran the numbers, I realized, wait a minute, if there is a halving, miners need the price needs to double to not lose miners. And that's how I got that number. And I'm just like, oh crap, like what's the average of that annualized? 19%? If I just put 19% in a compound interest calculator and I saw that um, that's what Bitcoin has to do to never lose miners. And I realized that's only the situation if there's no fee market. And right now there's no fee market because of Lightning, because these freaking idiot. I could just go on and on. Oh my God, they killed Bitcoin, and I'm convinced. I didn't really become such a huge Caspa maxi until I'm going on a tangent right now, but thanks for letting me have the mic. I can just go on and on about Bitcoin and Caspa. But basically, part of me used to be like Bitcoin and Caspa, like, but it wasn't until I ran the numbers, I'm like, holy fuck, like Bitcoin's cooked. Like it's not even Bitcoin and Caspa. It's just Caspa right now. That's kind of the way it's looking. So what are y'all's thoughts? What are y'all's thoughts? Kind of went on a rant.
Yeah, well, I'm 100% Caspa. I believe Juan is now 100% Caspa. Onion, you're now 100% Caspa. So it's a movement of people who know the technology and know what it is. And it's a lot. We have Pavel, who's part of Igra Labs, who has incredible talent, and he's putting everything into building these new smart contracts for Kaspa. He could choose any coin that he wants to build on. He chooses Kaspa. And the fact that Jonathan and Pavel can just go back and forth and nerd out and geek out with technology talk and it be so nuanced over what's going to be more impactful vprogs or IGRA, and which is going to need to come first, ZK this or EVM that or opcode this, or I don't know. All that stuff is kind of foreign to me, to be honest. But one thing I do know is that there's people who are making the conscious choice to put Caspa front and center in their lives, whether it's putting all their money into it, putting their whole lives into it, their work, their energy, their belief. Even people who've had fallouts with Caspa, with people, continue to believe in the project because the tech is bigger than the people. And that speaks for itself that the technology is something we're all watching and it's what we believe in.
Yeah, and I'll say so exactly what you said there at towards the end, Kara. Okay, so Onion, what I appreciate about how you have schooled us and educated us on the numbers is that specifically speaks to me about what's beneath the surface, looking at the base layer of the engine and just running the numbers, right? So if we just look at that for what it is and take away the stories that are out there. So there's all these stories. That's how I look at influencers and what people say. So speaking on the inconsistencies that you're talking about, right? You'll hear one group say, "Oh, like this Kruger guy who I think is probably drunk most of the time when he's just like all over the place and sloppy, and it's hard for me to even be in that. Like talking about feeling an energy, the energy of when that guy talks, you can just tell is very surface level. Very, think about all the shit that he said about Casper that had nothing to do with the technology. Just the story and what his opinion is of what he thought Jonathan was and all that crap, right? That right there tells you everything in terms of the listening that you should have for that guy. And like you said, he talks about, oh, we don't even need minors. So you hear one perspective there, then you hear the opposite, and then it's like, no, but tell me how this works. So what is this about? What is it supposed to do? And if you just look at Bitcoin for what it does on its base layer, it is capped out. And I've got, I love how you pointed out 800,000 transactions. I see it on most of the posts where you're where you're fucking screaming at these people trying to get their attention. Let me and you're so nice about it. That's what I love, and that's why I get so entertained by you, because I'm like, this guy is so intelligent, and I've written it to you. I go, they're just not on your level, brother. They're just not. They're not there with it. They're not going into depth. Like, they're still stuck to their story about it. So fuck the story. What's underneath the surface of this? Bitcoin is capped out at 800,000 transactions per day on its base layer, right? I loved when I don't know if you did this during a space that you did all by yourself, but when you pointed out Fedwire, I didn't even know about Fedwire. Where I'm 44 years old, I've made all this money in the world. I'm like, I didn't know about Fedwire. I learned that from hearing about you, and then I went in and dove in. I'm like, oh shit, he's right. So Fedwire does it's the maybe you can speak a little bit more to what it is, but again, just the numbers. Fedwire does it's I think about 900 transactions per day. Okay, 900 transactions per day. The average transaction is $5 million per transaction. That maxes out the base layer. So let's say the scenario of what these Bitcoiners tell us with their story, which is, oh, there's going to be hyper Bitcoinization and then no big deal. We're going to move over to the Lightning, and that's a whole nother conversation, right? It's the layer twos aren't Bitcoin. That's called Lightning. It's not Bitcoin. But just speaking to it from that perspective, and then when you bring in so right there, you're maxed out. And then we did a stress test. There was a stress test done. Odie led the way, and I think Potat and a handful of other people. That I mean, Kaspa did 158 million transactions in a day, right? And by the way, where was the news about that? It just came from us. Nobody else talked about it, right? Which I think that came up, by the way, just to kind of throw this out there. I know that when I was in London, there was a publication company that came over and said they were going to help with that. So I mean, I think so. There's some networking being done in order for us to get more PR out. And again, that has to happen organically with how this community is set up. So yes, listen, Onion. I always hear you say the same shit. Like, you'll throw these facts out. Like, you literally throw out the substance. You throw out what's beneath the surface, what this shit really is, and then like you'll be nice about it. Be like, I don't know, I could be wrong, but like, no, you gave numbers. You gave factual numbers. We know you can go on an Explorer and see what the transactions are in Bitcoin. So another thing that came to mind too, we talk about Lightning, and these people are like, oh, people can just use Lightning. It doesn't support the base layer. It doesn't secure the network. These proof of work protocols, so Bitcoin, Caspa, we have to figure out how to incentivize miners to come over and give the network hash power. That is what gives us its security. That is an important element in this whole thing, right? And the way Caspa is set up, like I don't have my miner turned on right now, but I'm not a tech guy. It was super easy to set up my miner, and I can win blocks every fucking day. I had it turned on for 2 days and I ended up winning like 8 blocks, right? So that in itself shows you, okay, how come I can't do that with Bitcoin? And Bitcoin, it's lottery mining, and I may be getting a little too technical here, but my point is, yeah, Onion, when you come with this information, you always give factual. You can tell you go in and give the research that you've done, and then you give numbers, and then you throw it out there, and then I follow the posts. Nobody ever comes back with anything with substance. They give you the surface level answers of, well, you're retarded. Like, I've noticed a couple of the guys that are pretty consistent there. I won't give them any shine. You can if you want to, but they're pretty consistent and just telling you you're retarded, or you don't know what you're talking about, and then just being like, then they throw out a chart and say, oh, but look at his performance over the past year. And it's like, bro, do you want to do this? Because like you, Onion, I'm a numbers guy, and I know the Bitcoin numbers, right? And I always just go back to, oh, I fucking held Bitcoin from 2021 to 2024. It did not go up in nominal terms. Like, I didn't see a profit in 3 years. So you're telling me about what Cass was doing in a year. This isn't about just price action and getting rich and my bag fucking going up. What is this technology doing? So I think that's what we've done so much within Caspa, and why so you're right, Kara, I am 100% Caspa, but it didn't start that way. Like Onion, I was Well, okay, maybe it's a compliment. I would even do that when I was talking to Bitcoiners in the beginning after the debates, because there was a lot there for me to learn and really understand. I would sit back and think, okay, yeah, maybe it's a compliment. Maybe they're gonna no, they're in competition with each other. And by the way, I do see potentially both of them coexisting, but it's going to be very different. We see what's playing out with Bitcoin. So if you're following it in detail, you see what's happening. And again, if you understand the macro side of it and see how the markets are running out of money, there's not a lot of liquidity. There was just an FOMC meeting today, for example, and they lowered interest rates, and the prices are still going down. That shows that shit. There's these leaks and holes in the system, and we are in a debt-based system that needs to refinance the debt because we do not produce enough to pay off the debt. So if you understand that and get that these protocols, that's why Bitcoin goes up and down as much as it does. It trades 24/7. Same with Kaspa. Kaspa is just a smaller market cap, so you're going to see fluctuations a little bit steeper. But these are measuring economic activity all throughout the world, right? And people there aren't people know about Caspa, but it's not at the level of what people know about Bitcoin. So, no, bro, you always bring facts, and that's why I fucking love you, and I love what you're doing, um, educating us the way you do. Like, don't I know you're not going to stop it, but it's beautiful, and just stop questioning yourself in anything. Like, if I do have a request, it's like stop saying like, oh, I don't know if I'm saying this from a crazy. No, you're not fucking crazy, bro. You're not. Like you speak facts, and I would love to see somebody challenge them. I would love to get challenged on any of this any day. I'm totally open to that. So I experience the same thing when I talk to people, and they can't you mentioned it. I noticed that Caspians are just way more educated because we don't just talk about price. We want to know how this shit works, why it works the way it works, what is this really doing for us. Kara talking about building out. What she's doing. Like we're building over here. We're builders. We're trying to have adoption, and this actually have it make a difference for us. So yeah, that's me and my rant. And we're supposed to go on rants here, so you feel free to rant whenever you want. Onion, go ahead.
Bro, beautiful rant. I could listen to all. It's freaking awesome. Thank you, and thanks for the kind words. And
Yes.
something I just want to mention. Part of the reason that I kind of maybe second guess myself or I sound like I do is what I'm really looking for is like I feel like I'm on my own. I'm just researching these numbers and I'm running napkin math in my room and I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. Wait a minute. Like I was just like this literally doesn't add up. Lightning doesn't add up. The base layer, all these numbers, Fedwire, like when I run the numbers of what happens if Bitcoin wins, what does it look like? And I'm just like, that looks risky. And I run all these numbers and I have these scenarios painted out like, okay, if this happens with Bitcoin, it gets screwed this way. And I've never run a situation where I'm like, this thing is just going to thrive and do well. Um, and part of the reason is I guess like I I want to be challenged. And so I do all this math in my room, really just addition and subtraction, really. And then I just ask ChatGPT. I come to a conclusion, and I'm just like, holy fuck, my conclusion's very different than the narratives. I like what you said. There's all these stories, but no one's digging beneath the surface on like what is Bitcoin, right? There were narratives that got people against Bitcoin in the beginning, and now there's narratives that are getting people to onboard the Bitcoin, but this whole time no one's ever looked at Bitcoin. And I guess what I'm really looking for is I just want to have a conversation about Bitcoin. I want someone to prove my numbers wrong. I want someone outside the Caspa community because no offense, but maybe we're biased. I'm thinking, okay, maybe we're biased. Maybe we just want to pump our own bags. I want to have a debate with a Bitcoiner to have an outside perspective, a real debate where they say, no, Bitcoin doesn't need to rise 19% a year. No, Bitcoin doesn't need to double every 4 years. No, Bitcoin will have a fee market because of this, this, and this. But that's never happened. That hasn't happened. And so I have all this data and I'm just sitting in my room like, what the hell? And so it's just so odd that I've opened the door thousands of different times, thousands of different angles, thousands of different ways for these guys to like I've approached the Lightning Network through like 50 different lenses, you know? I've approached self-custody through different lenses. Different features of Bitcoin, I believe, get warped in different ways or mutated in different ways. And I'm just finding that I've never gotten a discussion on anything I've ever brought up. These Bitcoiners, it's all about price, and it's part of the reason, maybe this is my own fault, but it's just like I want to be proven wrong. I want them to be like, no, you're wrong here, here, and here. And then that'll give me something to be like, oh, these are new numbers I can run. These are, I'm seeking truth, and I don't know. I'm going to a bunch of idiots to do so. So maybe I'm the idiot, you know? But that's all this really is, you know? So that's my rant.
Yeah,
Onion,
and you're
wait,
go
Onion,
ahead, Kara. Go ahead.
Onion, you had said that there's only 1% of current cold wallets that can open up a Lightning channels a day or sell to exchanges for fiat. So if 50% decide they want to use Bitcoin today to extract their wealth, then it would be a 150-day queue for all base layer transactions. You said that. These are your words. Can you let us know what you were thinking and where you came up with that? Because 150 days is a long time to wait to use a base layer when everyone wants to use it. So can you talk a little bit about the Bitcoin cold wallet situation and what you found when you researched that with opening up the Lightning channel?
Yeah, I love this. Yes, so basically this actually discovered by accident. I looked, so I just So when I say 800,000 transactions a day on Bitcoin, I actually am operating under an assumption that the user has consolidated their UTXO sets because I consolidated my own and I took my personal Bitcoin. Anyway, I'm using very conservative numbers. The Bitcoin network actually does less. But I found this by accident because I was just thinking, wait a minute, Bitcoin only does, you know, a little less than a million transactions. It's only capable of doing 800,000 a day. I'm just thinking, how many cold wallets are there? And I looked it up and I saw multiple results. There were results saying 100 million cold wallets on Bitcoin, 200 million. Then there were some saying 500 million. So the number I'm going with is 200 million. That's the number I've seen the most. So maybe the data is a little wrong. But every instance I've looked up how many Bitcoin cold wallets are there, it's always in the hundreds of millions, right? So I was just thinking, wait a minute. All of these Bitcoin maxis, their suggestion is, no, we're not going to use Bitcoin. We're going to use Lightning. And then they say, okay, we're going to, the way miners are going to get revenue is when you onboard to the Lightning. And I was like, okay, let's go with that. Let's run their scenario. And I was just like, wait a minute. That means they're expecting 200 million cold wallets at some point to open Lightning channels. And I'm just thinking, all right, well, people aren't going to do that until they need to. And the only time they would need to, I don't know when that would be. Maybe we get lucky and they do it, it's all slowly divided naturally and over the course of 10 years and it doesn't congest the network. But I was like, nah, I don't know. That's risky because what happens? I guess what I was thinking is what happens if it's not a slow ease from cold storage to Lightning? What happens if people panic? What happens? And I realized 200 million wallets, if they all wanted to open Lightning channels, there's only 800,000 spots a day on the base layer. It's just basic math. 200 million divided by 800,000. And that's like I realized that's about like 180 something days or something. Um, and that took me, at first I didn't believe it. And I was like, wait a minute. That means there's going to be people who can't touch their cold storage. Keep in mind, that's the thing they're telling you to do. Cold storage, get to 1 Bitcoin, cold storage. Imagine you have 1 full Bitcoin cold storage and you're going to spend it, right? And you're now forced to wait 150 days to spend it. Like that's worse than a bank. And the this sounds like a I don't know how to put it. This sounds like a theoretical situation, right? But I don't think it's that theoretical. I think it takes one panic instance where Bitcoiners get scared, or not even panic. Maybe the price just skyrockets, and a lot of Bitcoiners just simply are like, I want to take profits now. You're banking that no more than less than 1% of Bitcoiners a day are going to um, use their Bitcoin in one way or another. And I'm just thinking, this is insane. This is literally, I guess the way I'm seeing it is the base layer is this really tiny net, and there's just this massive tsunami of cold wallets that are going to one day want to use the money that they've saved. You're right, because Bitcoin's going to keep going up as they keep printing money. And at some point, they're going to want to spend it. And when that wave hits, I mean, my goodness, like I just realized I'm like, that's not a cue that I don't want to get stuck in that. Can you imagine not being able to spend your Bitcoin for 180 days? I mean, and not only that, that's because like you'd have to jump the line. If you want to jump the line, God knows what the transaction fee is going to be, right? Upwards in the thousands. And what on earth is the price of Bitcoin going to be after you've waited 180 days? The only reason that would even happen is if people are selling, taking profits. So you're literally going to be forced to wait 180 days. And realistically, if this were to happen on Bitcoin, sorry, I know I'm going on a rant, but I just think that if you were to have people cash out on Bitcoin a little bit faster than the rate that's happening right now, people would be forced to wait a day. Then they'd be forced to wait 2 days. Then they'd be forced to wait 3 days. And then I think people start getting scared like, wait a minute, this is a trend of I'm locked in my cold wallet. I can't leave unless I wait 4 days to avoid crazy fees. I think that's going to cause panic. And then it's going to cause more wallets to want to sell. Well, now it's going to be 5 days, 10 days. Well, that's going to cause more panic. There's going to be more people like, well, crap, Bitcoin's price is doing really well right now. I want to be able to cash out today rather than who knows how long this line is going to be. This is exactly how every bank run has happened in history. There is a timeline of it's not even that the bank doesn't have the money, it's that people think that they can't cash out their money. That's what causes the bank run. And so if people know that there is a questionable amount of time between where they can access their Bitcoin, let alone what the price is going to be. Wait a minute, it's going to take 5 days to access my Bitcoin when it used to only be 1 day. Now it's 10 days. Now it's 11. People are going to lose their shit. And I don't know, man. I was just running the numbers. Basically, this is what I don't know. This just doesn't look good to me. So I said, fuck that. So those are my numbers. I don't know.
Bro, so these are the rants that are beneath the surface that are important that people don't talk about, right? So we know this about Bitcoin. You're using conservative numbers, so you speak on 800,000 transactions per day. That is what it's capped out per day. Maybe people don't understand why that's the case, but why is that the case? It's because there's a block every 10 minutes, and it's capped out, right, at what, 4,000 transactions per block. Like Bitcoin won't speed up. That is what it is. That's the base layer of the system. So it actually makes Lightning make sense for them. But then again, going back to this and stripping it down to what it is. What's the story? The story is, well, Bitcoin's been around forever. Bitcoin's number one. Have fun staying poor. You're a retard. Like those are the stories that people throw so that you distract yourself from getting the actual truth, which is what we all are here and what I appreciate about this community. And the reason I'm here and the reason I'm no longer in Bitcoin as well, just like you. It's like I didn't take the time to actually look at what was underneath all of this. So no, I mean, just so what are bank runs? I didn't even understand as I've studied history, Onion, and gone back and looked at bank runs. And by the way, this has happened in history. People, here's the thing. Like we're all, I'm 44. You're a young guy. We're pretty relative in terms of our history. But just go back 100 years. Like if you really go back and look at the Federal Reserve and why that was created and what happened and why that came about. and that whole story. It takes some time to dig in and really find this out. But these bank runs have happened. And then when you realize, okay, we've been on this fiat standard since 71 when gold was depegged from the dollar. And currencies, if you take a look at the history of currencies have only lasted on average 27 years on average all throughout the world, throughout history. And we've been on this damn currency for 54 years. It's just we're so it makes sense that Bitcoin was hijacked back in 2017. So that's a whole nother story. I encourage anybody here who hasn't read Hijacking Bitcoin, go take a look at that. It all started from 2014 to 2017. I've dug deep into this, and there are cited actual things that happened on the forums and how they went about doing this. But Bitcoin wasn't meant to just be capped out at what it's capped out. And I know that it's one block every ten minutes. And I don't know, Onion, if you can speak on this too, because like one of the things that I looked at was, people talk about that there could only be one. That was another propaganda. I think that's propaganda that's out there right now. There can only be one proof of work because of the energy grid and all the energy that Bitcoin takes up. And I looked at that. It's like, well, Bitcoin's a technology. Yeah, there's all these bigger companies mining it, but that's how it has to be on Bitcoin because it's capped out. They limited the base layer to 800,000 transactions, and so it has to scale in layers. They have to do that. But it's a technology. And they decided, so a part of the consensus was because of the information that was out and how they filtered the information of the masses. And then again, this was in 2017. So I think of, I wasn't around back then or paying attention, but anybody that was, and again, you do a little bit of digging, try to weed out through the fucking propaganda and the bullshit that was being talked about. What actually happened? So there was a group of people that went towards, oh, we should have bigger blocks. Why should we have the bigger blocks? Well, because we can do more transactions. It would have expanded the base layer. And then actually that's what makes Caspa make sense to me. Because you take a look at what Jonathan did in 2013 when he tried to present the secure, the when he presented what he presented with Aviv Zohar and was talking about this DAG thing, and I think, and Jonathan, by the way, I've like the links that I've put together. Jonathan talks about this on that podcast that he does with Vlad, where he speaks of the culture of Bitcoin. And he doesn't, obviously he made fun of Bitcoin with the turtle and everything, but if you listen to that interview, weren't about changing, and it's just that was around the time that they were being, it was like the capture of what was happening in Bitcoin, and he saw it, so he goes, okay, no, we just have to go do this somewhere else. And so the culture is a reflection of what Jonathan saw, and obviously with how Casper went about going about, hey, no, this needs to go to 100 blocks. And if you're not a technical person, it's like, okay, that doesn't, why? But again, just try to simplify it, because more blocks creates a larger base layer, and it actually does what this whole thing was meant to do, and that was, like it says in the Bitcoin white paper, a peer-to-peer digital cash system without a third-party intermediary. And if you look at Bitcoin, after 800,000 transactions, if you're not one of those people that has all this Bitcoin, good luck. Like, you just went against every what this whole thing was about. And that is no longer the narrative. Now we're hearing, right? So these companies like Strike and their custodial services, they're holding your Bitcoin for you. Like, we're just okay with all of this shit staying on exchanges. So nobody's getting to the depth like you are, Onion. And so these rants are important because it gets people to start thinking again and thinking for themselves versus just taking in information and taking it as facts and truth. So we're actually speaking truths based off of the information that we've gone underneath the layers to find.
I also want to um, mention a little bit, since we're talking about rewards and the fee market and what Bitcoin has been through, just kind of shifting back to what Caspa offers here. Onion did a whole dig into weighted transactions versus non-weighted transactions and how this is going to make a world of difference for Caspa miners. So I'd like to invite Onion to talk about what he discovered, because this is actually what makes Caspa the solution to the Bitcoin problem, that the fee market that they're having, and miners not getting paid because of Lightning, and the fear of the bank run and all of that. So I'd like to invite Onion to kind of share with us what he learned about the weighted versus non-weighted transactions with Kaspa.
Hell yes, I love this. I love y'all just give me the floor and I can just talk about Kaspa and take a dump on Bitcoin. This is awesome. So thank you. Yeah. Few things. One thing I just want to mention about Bitcoin and Kaspa regarding remember how I was talking about how there's 200 million you can only do 200 million, or sorry, there's 200 million cold wallets on Bitcoin, but it can only do way less transactions a day, so people basically get stuck. Fun fact, Kaspa, we did that speed test and we did 150 million transactions in a day and it was nothing. So I was just thinking, like, even more proof that Kaspa is the answer. We literally have a mathematical number that shows the network when we did that speed test. Um, Imagine if there are 100 or 150 million Caspians trying to use the network. Like it literally was just another day. In fact, it wasn't even like a third of the network congestion. It was totally fine. So I just think that literally I just find it beautiful that the current number with Bitcoin of cold wallets can actually exist on Caspa today, right now. Like if Bitcoin had a bank run today, Kaspa literally is a net that can absorb that. Now, that being said, that's just a little fun fact. That being said, I'll answer your question, Kara, about the fee market um, and how that works, what I learned about that with Kaspa and how it's different than Bitcoin. So basically, regarding those 150 million transactions on Kaspa, when that speed test happened, when Crypto Odie did that, um, some I don't know the exact number, I could be wrong, but 150 million transactions on Kaspa generated about like maybe 5,000 Kaspa worth of fees. And I saw that number and I was just thinking, is Kaspa gonna need 150 million transactions a day? And like, how's that gonna, and it only generated 5,000 in fees? And I'm just thinking about the security budget, how we have very aggressive halvings. And I'm just thinking, how the hell is Kaspa going to survive? There's no way in the next, I, I could be bearish, but when you only look through the lens of peer-to-peer transactions, the amount of people using banks and stuff right now, and the amount of people not even using Bitcoin, I'm just thinking no one's gonna peer-to-peer transactions. No one really cares about. Maybe like I don't. I'm going on a rant here, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that in order to get like 200 million daily transactions on Kaspa in the next few years seems unrealistic. Let alone if we did, the fees are not enough, Kaspa would die. But what I learned is that those are transactions of air. If you and me are sending each other money through Kaspa, that doesn't really generate a whole lot of fees. Kaspa generates a lot more fees when it's a weighted transaction, if there's mass. So how much data is in the transaction? And those transactions are juicy. And I did a whole spaces on this, but I'll give a little summary. Essentially, when you use Kasaya Messenger, um, that feeds the miners way better than just sending a peer-to-peer transaction. Um, when you like the KRC20 stuff, inscriptions, that has data tied to it. That feeds the miners. And the other day, I was trying to upload files onto Kaspa within 2 days, or I think one day. Yeah, it was one day. It took a whole day, but one day, I wasn't using Kaspa for peer-to-peer messaging. I was taking advantage of the fact that people are running archival nodes, and I'm going to get free eternal data storage for life. Um, and so I, in uploading my data, Kaspa pieces together my transactions, the files that I'm uploading. What I was uploading is about 10,000 transactions on Kaspa, and all of them were heavily loaded transactions because I'm uploading data to the network. And so I think I paid about 4 Kaspa that day, maybe 2 or 3 Kaspa. And if you were to think about how many peer-to-peer transactions that would have been, it would have been way more. So if you think about it, by using Kaspa, by trying to get utility value out of Kaspa outside of money, that's what me as an individual person, I was generating way more fees that day than I would have if I was just sending money. And so if you think about this on a, a more global level, when we have basically what I see happening is um, the every day that Kaspa exists, someone's building something new on it, and that's an opportunity for new utility value. And the utility value on Kaspa is what has weighted transactions. And I guess that's what I see bailing out the security budget, right? That's as the block reward decreases, um, the opportunity for transactions from a user perspective to be weighted and heavy increase because we have more tools available to use Kaspa. 8 months ago, I couldn't send a message on Kaspa. 8 months ago, I couldn't upload a file to Kaspa. 8 months ago, I couldn't do this or that on, like, someone's building a social media on Kaspa, right? And so um, the way I saw it is right now our security budget looks scary because it's only going down essentially. Because right now our security budget, our protection against a 51% attack, that is tied directly to the price of the coin. This is the same problem Bitcoin has. Bitcoin has the exact same problem. If the price goes down, security goes down, which is why it's so scary for us in Kaspa, because we are living um, a a speed run version of what Bitcoiners are going to be experiencing soon. The only difference is every day that we experience this, someone's building a way to bail us out, and that's through the utility value. Um, and so what's actually very fascinating is I compared early day Kaspa. Imagine day one, Kaspa's launched at 1 block per second. The only thing you could really do on Kaspa was send each other peer-to-peer transactions. So I would argue that was the most riskiest time to have to make a decision based on if you're going to be on a Kaspa standard, because if you run the numbers, I guess this is just my logic, you would have needed like millions of transactions a day, because there's no real utility value in Kaspa that was available outside of money. It was simply just peer-to-peer money. And so that forces Kaspa to, if you're going to look into the future and try to project what does it look like without the block subsidy, um, it would need a bunch of transactions. But as it ages, you can see, okay, someone built KRC20 inscriptions. Okay, so a few years in Kaspa, the ability to add more data just occurred. So that actually decreases the amount of users Kaspa needs. Okay, well now we're at 10 blocks a second and there's new apps being made. That actually decreases the amount of transactions that need to happen. And so the way I see it is when vprogs come out, um, and the egra's layer 2 comes out. I know people don't like layer 2s for other reasons and stuff, but the idea is, I guess what I'm trying to articulate here is, if you envision the block subsidy graph going down, going down, going down, I would argue that the opposite graph also takes place in the opposite direction of the utility value of Kaspa is increasing, increasing, up, up, up. And at some point, there's going to be an intersection in that graph to where Kaspa's utility value equals the block subsidy, because of weighted transactions. And we speed that up through utility value, not through peer-to-peer transactions, at least in this time, right? Anyway, I'm going on a little bit of a rant, but the same way we have the block subsidy, I believe utility value is going to be what bails us out, and then we don't need the block subsidy. Anyway, I hope I explained it well, but that's my understanding. That's kind of a summary of that spaces. So yeah.
I went ahead and pinned a handful of your spaces to our, if you can see them up on the banner. But I went ahead and did that for any of you guys that want to check out what the onion said in even more detail. But yeah, brother, you opened my eyes to the whole weighted, and I was having a conversation. I see Bishop down there too. We were having a conversation about that because we're trying to wrap our heads around what you meant by that, and that correct me if I'm wrong here. So the way I take it is, okay, yeah, because so that's why going to 100 blocks or expanding this to 10 blocks per second like it is right now is so critical. And then because there's a lot of chatter on there of why did Caspa have the emission so front loaded. But if we're looking at the utility side of what Caspa brings to the table, we will generate a fee market, right, based off the type of transactions that are being done on Caspa, right? So, for example, running this on Vivor, like we're on Vivor, and people can listen to us there, and that plays into that. And then obviously the K social, like you mentioned, and all these other heavier transactions are way different than a light transaction. A light transaction that would be, like you said, very simple peer to peer. And Bishop actually spoke to that. So, actually, based on what you just shared, and now thinking back to one of the spaces that you put on, that just clicked for me. Okay, that makes sense where a peer to peer transaction isn't going to have as much weight, and that's why the 158 million transactions that day maybe didn't generate as many fees. But we're not seeing the whole picture because, again, the Caspa is an incomplete project, right? When Dag Night comes and then eventually getting to 100 blocks, that's the whole. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about this. I'm thinking out loud based off of how you've educated us, and what's happening within the ecosystem. So yeah, bro, thank you for the rants, or the rant here. It actually tied it all together for me just now.
Hell yeah, dude! I love that. I love. Yeah, I. You're exactly right. The Dag Knight, um, or what was it? Like vprogs, and I guess the more utility value we get, the easier it's gonna be to bail out that security budget. And so, um, if we just do the math on peer-to-peer transactions, it looks really scary. Like, uh-oh, we have 4 years to get Caspa to be doing 150 million transactions a day. But really what we actually need is maybe we just need 100,000 people a day doing smart contracts on, or the equivalent, whatever the hell vprogs. I know it's a little different, but we need 100,000 people a day using vprogs. That will equal the equivalent of like a crazy amount of peer-to-peer transactions, right? That's my understanding. Um, so there's gonna be,
Question.
oh yeah, go for it, go for it.
So I'm just trying to understand what would include a weighted transaction. So earlier I was talking about how I'm playing with smart contracts to uh, have a platform for authors to have an extra revenue stream by selling their ebooks. An ebook isn't necessarily put on the Caspa network, but it's, I mean, at least not the way I currently envision it, but it could be. If they're paying with Caspa, would it be a more weighted transaction if it's going to link to something that has more data than just money, or is it just considered a money transaction? I'm thinking just money in this situation, but it
Um,
could be more. I mean, we could potentially put the ebook on the network and then sell it. I don't know. I'm just thinking about how to go about this so that it can actually generate more
yeah,
fees for the miners.
I love that. I love that. I think if you were to upload the actual book to Caspa, first of all, it would take a while, but it would that would generate some transactions. Um, and then if there was some sort of logic, I could be wrong here, but my understanding is vprogs allows for programmability. if there was some sort of logic, someone wrote some sort of I don't know, some way to handle the payment and some way to have a program that like releases the content to them based on like if they paid, like the logic for that, right? An e-commerce logic on Caspa somehow, or the layer two, or however the hell. Um, that I think would generate fees. Um, so I guess my answer to the question is, if there's logic tied to it, I think there's more fees. But if there's no logic, then I think it's just a normal transaction. But I could be wrong, right? But that's my understanding.
But it's a great thought experiment to go down, because this completely shifts the lens of why we get what we get from the Bitcoiners, right? And then this actually ties in, because I understand it a lot better now, but the whole knots versus core debate, right? Where, and I've seen you post where Caspa fixes this, because we would actually welcome those types of transactions, considering we're doing 10 blocks per second right now, and then even more so once the blocks are sped up and we're at 32 and then eventually 100, right? So yeah, so the lens that we get even judged by right now from the outside, you have to shift that completely. It's a completely different set of eyes that you have to look at what this is. That's why to me, again, it's pretty cool how it's just coming together for me right now during this conversation. Um, just goes to show that Caspa stands on its own, and it's a completely different technology, right? That evolves with the blockchain. You're very limited with a blockchain that is running a consensus in parallel and not using the orphan blocks. And then with this, considering it's, again, 10 blocks per second right now, but looking to evolve past that, that's what has all this utility come into play and benefit the network and benefit the miners. And then again, with us, like running a home miner is pretty cheap for us to do. And then that, okay, yeah, so then that ties what you're saying, right? If we just look at it based off of the lighter transactions, then oh shit, okay, we would be in trouble. I can see how I can see that now. That makes sense now.
Exactly. Yeah, with the lighter transactions, at least when I ran the numbers, I was like, this looks very scary. I mean,
Yeah.
actually, Caspa, the same way that we have a block reward for the is like a crutch in a way, like same with Bitcoin. We have the ability to get off that crutch by generating fees through utility value, right? And my belief is that once we generate so many fees with utility value, first of all, we're going to be the only proof of work network in existence to have decoupled security from a 51% attack from the price of the coin, which means Caspa can fall in price, but if people are using the network, miners might actually increase because they're getting fees. So Bitcoin can't do that. So I believe that by the time that this takes place, Bitcoin might be struggling, and there's going to be all these Bitcoiners seeing the price go down on Bitcoin. This is the second halving in a row where security hasn't gone up, and they're going to see Caspa doing just fine. We've decoupled price from security, and we've got this fee market going. Like, I think the timing is going to be brilliant. So maybe it looks scary being in Caspa, but I believe that if it works out, the timing is going to be just poetic. I could be wrong, but that's the way I see it playing out. Um, and I believe as a Bitcoiner, you're going to be jealous that there's no fee market. So that's that. And then there's also a huge chance that when there actually is, there is a real chance when everyone is using Caspa, just simply for peer-to-peer payments, that's like step three, right? Step one is the block reward secures the network. Step two is the utility value as we get off the block reward. But then step three is we should have a lot of users at that point that people are genuinely using Caspa. There is a real point in the next 10 years, 15 years that it does generate a bunch of fees simply from transactions of air, right? And that's just through volume, but we need it's going to take time for that, which is why it's so awesome that we can have this utility value outside of that, also kind of bail us out temporarily. So the way I see this is like another block reward in a way, except it's actually far more sustainable. So um, so yeah, we can have utility value raise fees for the network, while also later down the line, peer-to-peer transactions should also be enough. The number just needs to be very big. That's all. So,
I love the whole thought of it decoupling, and then even like you're right, even if price action, because we tie price action, and I've seen the back and forth with hash rate or the miners dropping off or that being an argument. That is an issue for Bitcoin because Bitcoin is trying to just be money, but we're in a completely different game. So it wouldn't, man, this is awesome, bro. I love how forward thinking you are, and again what you bring to the table. So this is really good stuff to get my brain to think of at midnight my time. Thank you.
no worries. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
I
love it.
I could go on.
Yeah, I know
I
you
know it's
could. I
midnight, so
mean, I know you could. You're East Coast too, man. You're a night owl. I know
yeah.
that.
But
Yeah.
hell yeah, dude. Well, I won't throw any more at you
No,
if
no,
it's
no.
getting
It's all
late.
good.
But
No,
yeah,
no. This is
that's
great. This is awesome. I love it. Maybe I'll dream about it and come up with a solution.
oh
Build something in my dreams and then wake up and build it. Who knows?
If I
I love it.
if I upload ebooks to the Caspa network and let's say World War III happens and all the archive nodes just go offline and all we have left are the prune nodes to restart the network, would the ebooks still be there? Or we lose that? How does that work exactly?
Oh, good question. Good question. You okay? So your stuff will be stored on the archival nodes, and then once they're wiped out and the network is fully running on pruned nodes, you will lose the ebook unless someone rejoins the network that has an archival node. But then you'll just everyone will be relying on that one node to, and then like the archival data can be retrieved if someone has it, but you would have to hope someone has an archival node. But assuming all archival nodes are deleted and wiped out, um, and it's just, for whatever reason it's gone, then your ebook would probably, I mean, it can't be accessed anymore. It would just be pruned to nodes. So that is a risk. Um,
So just one archive node, it wouldn't have to be relying on just archive nodes that agreed to access to it the way that Knots does, right?
I'm sorry, rephrase that again?
Maybe I misunderstand how Knots works exactly, but if, okay, so let's say that there's archive nodes that come back online. Would it just
Hmm.
take one archival node, would it just take one to say, hey, I recognize everything that's been uploaded to the Caspa network? Or would it just agree to what it agreed to, like the way that Knots does for Bitcoin?
Um, if there was one archival node, sorry, what do you mean by knots? I'm just
You
curious.
know, that
I
core
I might be
versus Knots? Oh, I guess it
yeah,
would
but
be more
but
core, not Knots. Sorry. It'd be more core where they're accepting whatever they're agreeing to. Well, I don't know because I don't do core versus Knots. I don't do coin. But
you're cool. You're cool. So basically, as long as you can reach an archival node, if they rejoin the network, if they're online and you want to retrieve data, as long as that one archival node is online and you can reach them, you should be fine. The data is retrievable. So theoretically, if they're online for just enough time for you to re-download all your data, you can save it to your hard drive. Um, but if they go offline, and all you can access are pruned nodes, and there's not a single archival node. My understanding is that you've got about 3 days before the pruned nodes kick that stuff off. There are some people, I think, when you run a pruned node, you can choose how much data, I think, is on that pruned node. I think the default is about like a few days or a few, it's a set storage size. So there's like three, I don't know, I could be wrong here, but I think it's like 3 days or a few certain amount of storage. I don't know the exact number. Theoretically, if that archival node goes, you do have, I could be wrong, but some time. It's not instant, but there is, I think, like a slight delay. So like you might be okay. Um, but yeah, you really want the archival node. If oh yeah, there might be some people running like a really large pruned node. Like there could be someone that just has their computer set to, I'm gonna store up to 500 gigabytes of Kaspa. And so if you're lucky enough to be within that window, however many days past is worth 500 gigabytes, um, they'll prune their node after anything after 500 gigabytes on their computer. So there are instances where you, um, it's like not even a full archival node. I don't know if I'm making sense, but like there are different snapshots of the network. So you might be fine there. That's if you're lucky. But the reality is, if you can't connect to an archival node, you're probably cooked.
Well,
And
but
so that's
Coney,
with
though, we're gonna have Coney.
what is that? Is that the satellite?
Yeah, that's going to be the node in space, and that can be an archival node.
Yeah, if that's an archival node, then that would be freaking
That's
amazing.
from
Then we'd be
that's from the
chilling.
KII, right, Kara?
Yeah.
Okay.
Coney is from KII. And what's interesting, I got into a little fight with somebody over this in the last 24 hours. They were really,
Uh-oh.
I think it was Ghost Band under a different name. And
God.
yeah, and everything I said he was oppositional to, but I just went with it. And he was suggesting, and I'm going to throw some of his FUD out there regarding Coney and this archival node. He was saying that besides it being expensive and irrelevant and a complete waste of money and just another node, and how dare we put it in space? And aside from the fact that it's geopolitically neutral and that it would give us a decentralization milestone and all of that. So all of that aside, he was saying that it can still be turned off by satellite companies. So what's the point of even putting it up there? Why put an archival node in space and spend a lot of money to do this? And of course, my response was, well, who cares what rich people do with their money? If they want to put it in space, let them put it in space. It's not your money. Who cares? Let them do what they want. But he was, of course, throwing FUD because this is what he does. It's what he lives for. So he was saying that it's a complete waste. It can be turned off in space, so who cares? And it's going to have to be replaced every 3 or 4 years. So it's a waste of money. It's a bunch of junk. It's just blah, 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 blah. And of course, then and then he started dissing Dag Knight. So he went into that too. But anyway, I just found that interesting that the FUD was that a space satellite company could shut off the node, which is not unheard of because I had been talking to KRC bot about the fact that drones aren't using Caspa, they're using optical fiber cables to avoid jammers. So that is a real thing. We want to avoid jammers and people shutting off nodes, especially if there's a World War III situation. But the way I see it, these nodes in space are being put up by KII, and they have a lot of credibility. They have a lot of partnerships, and people like them. They're trying to do something good for the planet. They're trying to reduce carbon emissions and whatnot. So there's a lot of reasons to think that the bad guy isn't going to just shut down the node in space because they don't like us. But then again, if we're in a war scenario, anything can happen. But still, to say let's not put one in space, that just to me, wouldn't it be in our interest to do an archival node in space? And my understanding is we're having a constellation putting out there. So it's not just one. I read something on Reddit that said or implied that there's going to be multiple Caspa nodes, multiple of these Coney initiatives orbiting in space, and it could probably happen sometime next year.
Yeah, I just pinned the post that they put up, and looks like they have it pinned to their profile, the KII. I remember having that conversation. What was it, a few weeks back? Buffalo was on that too, where where he brought up the solution of, well, what if, because you brought out the tinfoil example of, well, what if everything goes down, and then we said, okay, well, those of us that have the resources would send these nodes to outer space. And it's interesting that you bring up the ghost band. That has to be the ghost band guy. He loves challenging and bringing what if scenarios to
Yeah.
everything. I think he's a pretty bright person, actually. I just think he's really bitter about Nano not doing what he hoped it would do. Uh,
I don't mind his logic. What I mind is that he started calling people the CUNT word,
oh
and I said,
yeah,
okay,
then
here
that's where
we
he,
go.
yeah, that's so he's like the warrior, the Caspa warrior for for Nano. Um,
Everybody needs one, right? Everyone needs someone full of rage.
Yeah, yeah. I saw. I mean, he shows up with different. Maybe he gets banned. I don't know. I've gone back and forth with him a couple times and just like been like, okay, yeah, maybe you're right, and I just kind of give him that, and it's always been pretty respectful with me. But I know he's been blocked by a lot of. He can get annoying, but I haven't blocked him. I'm trying
Yeah,
not. I'm trying not to block anybody. Like have them all come at me. They can come at me, and I'll go after them if they go after my people. Like I said. But yeah,
yeah.
he's
See, he didn't call me that. He called someone else that who was trying to defend Cass, but he was messing with one of my people, so I blocked him.
yeah, yeah. I feel you.
Because he was messing with my buddy, right? And no, he can't do that. He'll have to come back reborn as somebody else and try.
Yeah. Well, you can tag me to come and defend my people. So I'm here. I'm available. We've gone
Mhm.
back and forth a couple times. It's always been pretty respectful. So I don't mind it because it gets me on my toes and gets me thinking.
Uh, I like
So I
being
appreciate it.
challenged with these kinds of questions, especially if they're saying, "Hey, it's too expensive and what a waste." I mean, on some level, I kind of agree that there are some things that are really expensive. Is it really necessary? But in this case, a milestone is not necessarily something you would call necessary. It's something that you reach for. It's a goal. And to tell humanity, do not have milestones, do not have goals, kind of defeats the whole
What's the whole
purpose
point
of
of being here?
ambition.
What the?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so who cares if it's necessary? Are you ambitious? And
Yeah.
Casper's ambitious. It's doing what isn't necessary. It's doing something beyond what's necessary so it can be the best. This is why it's not Nokia who just gave up because they couldn't think of what was necessary
No,
next.
Nokia, there is no second best. There is no second best. It's Nokia and there is no second best. So yeah, I mean that speaks to this ecosystem and what we're trying to build within Caspa, and I think KII represents, obviously their interest, but from what I gather, that seems like an initiative to decentralize Caspa even more, putting in a node in outer space like that. And yeah, if
Yeah,
they have the
and
money to do it.
think about how cool it is to be able to say we have something that's geopolitically neutral. It's not
Yeah.
in any country. It is for everybody. That's even better than the Bitcoin book. Bitcoin is for everybody. If we are in outer space, CASP is for everybody. It's not even bound by a node that is owned by a country. You're dealing with a space company that can shut it down. That's a very different scenario.
Yeah, it's
Sure,
in
a
business.
government can have a big reach and say, we're going to make this company shut it down. That can certainly happen. But that's highly unlikely, especially considering the partnerships and the collaborations in so many different places. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, more power to anybody. Again, this is a decentralized protocol, and KII, right? They came into it, however they came into it, but they have to buy Caspa the way we do, and they can participate. I mean, they so I remember hearing, I believe it was from Rory in KI, how they literally have been looking for something like a Caspa for 10, 10, 15 years, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, but I want to say somewhere around that time. And it took, they had this checklist of all the things that needed to check off. And one of the big things with what they do, they need this real time, they can't wait for the confirmations that Bitcoin, for example, has. Bitcoin Secure has the hash power, has been around the longest, all that. But they need real time, instant, settlement, instant transaction. Like that's a very important thing with what they're trying to do and build. And yeah, again, like companies are welcome to see Caspa as a solution to decentralizing the world even more so. And I do think that that's where the world is heading, right?
Oh,
Con-
yeah.
this whole concept of decentralization, it's, we haven't had that. We've always come from a, by the way, I don't think decentralization is good in every aspect. Like I think a family needs to have centralization, right? Like I'm the leader of my family. I'm the one who manages the assets. Like my family's pretty centralized in terms of that. But when it comes to the world and these companies building on these technologies that could free people up even more so, um, decentralization from a company standpoint and them giving us tools that are going to give us more freedom. Yeah, that's the whole point of all this. That's the whole point of all this, freeing people up even more so. So,
I
yeah,
don't
it's a
know
net
if
positive
you
always.
I don't know if you read the recent DII flyer that he put out, but it really focused on technology and where we're headed in the Middle East with AI data centers and the boom that's happening as all these different organizations are relying on AI and data and having data centers that are going to be big enough to accommodate it. And Caspa, I didn't even see it mentioned in this huge newsletter. Okay, this was just talking about the state of technology and where it's headed. And my take from this is that even though there's some pros and cons, and some of the cons are that it seems as if some of these organizations may be confined to a location based on what their country allows. The pro is that even if they're confined, they'll still be able to broadcast and emit and reach greater and greater audiences outside of the country. And so that makes the demand higher for stronger data centers. And we've all heard of Marathon. Well, in this document, which was just released, Mara, which ironically DII called a Bitcoin miner, they didn't even mention Caspa, but they were saying that there's a partnership happening with, I think it was called Zero Two Energy or 20, I think it was Zero Two. It's an energy company that's going to be basically giving access to electricity, water, that sort of thing. And there's going to be some sort of exchange of credits or discounts in exchange for Mara shutting down or other Bitcoin miners shutting down for a period of time when the peak electricity gets too high for people. And so that partnership, I'm trying to figure out if that's even if 02 or 20, I forget what it's called, if that is partnered with DII. But just the fact that Bitcoin miners, these huge, giant places that are mining Bitcoin, are now being looked at by DII, KII, and seeing these partnerships that they can get with them to help them with their energy. Kaspa becomes, in my opinion, it really says we can offer you something. We can track this energy. We can do things in a way that will make your business better. And without Kaspa being mentioned, I could see Kaspa between the lines throughout these articles. And in addition, we can look at huge companies. We're always looking at institutionalization. We can look at Google, we can look at Microsoft. They were specifically mentioned as examples of big companies that have goals of reducing their carbon emissions. Well, that's the whole goal of Key, of DII, right? And because DII, their chairman of CASPA, is um, a huge supporter of CASPA, we have CASPA at the forefront of these oil companies, data companies, AI companies, working to get seen by huge Bitcoin mining companies and all of this. And that's one reason why I stay bullish here, because there's a lot going on that we don't see. And I'm sure there were probably a lot of um, contracts signed, a bunch of non-disclosure agreements where we don't really see all that's happening because we can't know yet. But we can see there's progress. There's uh, there was a sandbox just released. This actually happened during Tokenize. There was a sandbox released, and KII mentioned, "Hey, this was just released." Well, I checked it out, and basically, it was an application for stablecoins that was now being allowed to be uh, applied for, and the applications extend until February. Now, I don't know if that means that starting February, things might start to move and the sandboxes will be open, but I know that behind the scenes, there are a lot of big things happening, and it's going to go slow. It's going to take months and months for some of these things to even be pushed forward a little bit, because when you're making a big change with these institutions, it's not as simple as just flushing the toilet and you're done. These things take time, and they take a lot of patience with these regulators and this red tape and dealing with all of that. And I don't know, I just wanted to throw that out there, that there are a lot of things coming in addition to Cody, right? There's the AI data thing is so big.
Oh yeah.
We're
Yeah.
billions and billions. We're talking billions of dollars worth.
I mean, just take it.
Huge.
Yeah, just take a look at. I mean, like, do you use AI every day, Kara? Um,
Yeah, for different reasons.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I know. I've kind of heard you talk about that. I mean, I didn't really use it that much until about a year and a half ago. Now I can't go a day without using it. I'm sure a lot of people here can relate to that. And I think it speaks to just technology in general and what we're seeing happening. And for me, again, this goes back to a very energetic feeling the consciousness of the world and where we're moving, and also going beneath the surface, right? Because you have to dig in to really understand that the information that's maybe thrown out on the news or what you see on TV, that's only a layer of it. That's only a layer of it. When you go deep within, or you really dig into all this stuff, I've heard this thrown out there. It's, you think of the technology that's out today. A lot of these systems are run on old legacy systems that needed to die off. But going back to the money and the debt-based system that we're in, we've mortgaged the future to live in the present for such a long time. And I think again, giving Bitcoin its props, what Bitcoin flipped for us was having this scarce digital asset where if you held it, you benefited from it, but it literally flipped that, where it's like, okay, no, you don't, you have this digital commodity that's scarce, that that could essentially end the debt-based system of having you mortgage your future. And then you look at technology and how it's evolved and where we're going and what people are building, and this is, everywhere in the world. It's just running on these old legacy systems that does need something like a Caspa, Bitcoin starting and then, evolving to something like Caspa to be the base layer so that we can build on the future. So thinking of how much technology has evolved and where we are today, I've heard this concept thrown out there. In the next 10 years, we're going to see more than what we've seen in the past 100 years come out. And the demand that's out there for this AI to continue to evolve, for all these things you know, initiatives like the Caspa KI and what they're doing, it's really hard to wrap your head around it because it's a lot. It's quite a bit. Um, but just again, feeling into that, Kara, from like a very energetic standpoint, it's like this is what the world needs. There's a huge gap. There's a huge gap between the haves and the have-nots. And how long can that really sustain, right? I know the law of, I mentioned like the 80/20 rule and all that, but I just think that we can be better. We can be better with each other. We can be better with our technology. I think there's way too much suffering out there. There's too much divisiveness. And again, I've said this several times, but I do see people as a reflection of me. That's why it makes it very easy to relate and be zen about this, right? I haven't been this way my entire life. A lot of it has been my journey over the past 5 or 6 years, and just having this beautiful perspective on life and finding the peace in all the chaos. Like, there's a lot of fucking chaos out there, but technology does help us with everything that's coming out. It just helps us be here, be present, appreciate what's being built, how it's being built. Um, so yeah, there's just so much here. So I love initiatives like the Casper KI. I love what they're doing. It was hard to wrap my head around it in the beginning, but as we've had these spaces and we've been able to have these conversations, it's just like, whoa, my mind all day. It's like not a day that isn't just filled with this new info and gets me excited. And like the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And that's how it works. So yeah, who knows what's coming, but it's got to get better, and it's gonna get better.
And that's for sure. Uh, you were saying that technology makes things better, and I just thought of a really good example of that. All right, so all of us can agree that Jonathan is smart. We can all agree on that. He recently gave a speech on, you were there. He was at Tokenize, he gave a speech. And for a lot of us who listened to it, it was over our heads. I listened to it and didn't really understand exactly what he was saying. And so someone went online using, I'm trying to find out who they were. They used Notebook to basically retell the story of everything Jonathan said, but to say it for those of us who need it said and spoken to us in a different way.
I gotta listen to that version.
And they did. And so it was reposted by Caspa Unchained. So if anyone wants to go do a dig, you can find it there. And AI did this. AI actually made a video transcribing Jonathan's speech so that we could understand what he was saying. And I actually understood AI more than Jonathan. I learned so much from that about how the bridge is necessary. And there were, I don't know. Um I'm actually scrolling right now trying to find it.
Want to post it. I was doing the same
It's
thing.
incredible.
But but
It
that
is such a
but
good
that speaks to
video.
exactly what I'm saying with this whole. I have to. That is why I use AI every single day. It's like yeah. Jonathan is smart in cryptography and doing what he's done the past 10 years, but he obviously didn't get that. Hey, everybody wasn't ready for the meme shit on Casper and Chained. So that wasn't a very
Okay.
smart move, right? It's like we all have our own intelligences and things that we specialize in. But that's one of I look at AI as an extension of us. I look at technology as an extension of you. It can be a detriment, right? You can overdo it with anything. You can do this with anything. But the glass half full mentality, right? It's like how can you use this to benefit yourself and then
Hmm.
carry the disciplines that make that a benefit to you and an extension of you. That's really how I see technology. That's how I see all of this. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I did not know that there was something out there like that. Um, Kara,
I found it.
I was there, and the way I listen and I learn, I was just like looking around, and I was like, man, look at this guy, Jonathan, who solved a trilemma. He's wearing jeans, like funny looking shoes, a t-shirt. Like that's where my mind was. So I knew I was gonna have to listen to it, listen to it again. And it was obviously a great. Um, there were a couple things that did hit for me in terms of understanding why we have to go to 100 blocks. Um, so having to go to 100 blocks really secures the network even more so, is how I understood it. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Have you found it? Did you find the I'm on the
Yeah.
Unchained?
So it was created by Gotti Glickberg, whose username is not on Twitter, NOTONTWEETTER, two T's at the end there. And he used a program called Notebook. And if you want to check out Notebook, you can go to the username Notebook LM. And if you go on Caspa Unchained, go to December 5th, and you will see Caspa mining the internet. And it is the entire presentation that Jonathan gave in
No, I
person,
stayed here.
but
Yep.
redone by AI so that those of us who didn't understand a lick of what Jonathan was saying could understand what he was saying.
Real quick, I just want to mention that there has never been a Jonathan speech or YouTube video that I've seen where I've ever understood anything he's ever said.
Look at us admitting it. Yeah,
I've
yeah. That's I think that's the case for all of us, Onion. That that is
yeah.
the case for all of us. But yeah, I have to throw it into AI. And I remember you guys ran a space together where Kara kind of interviewed you on using AI. And when you were talking about how you use AI, I'm like, oh, okay, he's just like me. Like, make me understand this, have it make sense, because the AI gets to know you, and then it knows how to talk to you, and everything is just easier to consume that way. So yeah, same here, bro.
I love it. Well done.
Oh
I'm glad
yeah,
you do that.
I'm
That's
not the only
phenomenal.
one. I'm sure there's plenty of people on the spaces that do the same exact thing. Um,
Hell yeah.
makes us smarter a lot quicker. So
AI gets a lot of things wrong though too.
well,
One of my favorite things to do is to click on the source, and if it's an X source, I scroll through the comments to see if the original poster admitted that there was a typo that changed the entire argument, because sometimes Grok does not scan the comments to acknowledge the author saying, "Hey, there's something I can't edit." So I just want to throw that in there that if you guys are looking for very accurate information, make sure to read
no,
what an author's intended words
I'm
were.
with you. I'm with you there. No, for me, I think it does matter how you interact with it and how you ask it questions, right? Because if you ask a question and you're looking for it to tell you facts, and you're right, you have to ask it a certain way in order for it to respond a certain way. Because that's called hallucinating, if I'm not mistaken, right? That it does. So it will obviously it gets to know you and all that, but I've trained my AI. I use ChatGPT more than Grok, um, but I feel like it's gotten to know me pretty well. And I do challenge it though, and I think that's important, right? Because you're training it to be able to speak to you in a way that makes sense to you. So yeah, just when I heard Onion say that, I'm like, oh shit, that's exactly how I use it.
Hell yeah. I actually found Caspa through
Did
AI,
you?
essentially.
Oh shit.
Yeah. I was asking for proof of work alternatives to Bitcoin,
Wow.
and I saw Kaspa. It's like, what the hell is
Look at
that?
that.
So
I
yeah,
didn't I
thank.
didn't I didn't know that. I didn't know that about your story. That you found it through AI.
But yeah, so I feel like a lot of other people, Bitcoin doesn't have that benefit. Bitcoin, you had to find it through forums and stuff back in the
Right.
day, you know?
Right. Well, that I mean that speaks to where we're at with things, right? It's like the AI is pretty new. I mean, what ChatGPT launched in just 3 years ago in 2022. We're so new to this, man. As soon as
Hmm.
Gen Z and Gen Alpha, my son's Gen Alpha, and I say it's the way these younger kids function. They're gonna be like, why would I use Bitcoin? There's nothing on Bitcoin. Um, they're gonna come to Caspa. It's not even gonna be a competition.
Bitcoin's a rough
It
draft.
is. Thank you. Thanks for the rough
Yeah.
draft. Appreciate it. It has. I think it does have its place. I'm not in the camp of like it's. I know you've talked about it's going to die. It is going to have its issues, but I could also see it being bailed out by the debt-based
Oh yeah.
system. So if it stays alive, it's going to stay alive in that. It has to, right? We can't scale on the base layer, and it has to scale in layers. So I could see it being bailed out by that over there. But we have an alternative. We have something outside of the
Mhm.
system completely. And even if a portion of Caspa, for example, were at some point to get captured, it's like at least we have a fighting chance over here to keep our sovereignty. And that is one of my missions, if anything. It's like to educate the world as much as I can on sovereignty, live it. It's part of the reason why I do live on the Casper Standard with Bishop. So yeah, yeah, man, exciting stuff.
One thing I like to do, and this kind of branches off of sovereignty, one thing I like to do is ask AI questions that are very different than what you'd ever see someone asking on on X. For instance, if God is sovereign, are angels centralized or decentralized? And of course, AI says the angels are centralized. And I would ask it things such as, is bacteria, or let me rephrase that. I said, can bacteria experience greed? Can bacteria experience fear? And this just got me thinking about pre-human or just the most primitive life form, and kind of ethereal or almost intangible, and asking AI questions that are also in line with sovereignty, decentralization or centralization, those kinds of things. And that's kind of how I use my prompts when I'm just having fun and I don't need it and I'm just playing with it to kind of have a conversation. Those are the kinds of questions I like to throw. I just thought I'd share that.
I love where you go with it, Kara. Be interesting being in your brain for a day.
Lord have mercy, help you all.
You always bring you always it's perfect. If
I
God,
like
so what was the question?
jamming.
If God is, what did you say? If God has sovereignty, are angels centralized?
Yeah. And AI said that angels are centralized. However, if I can go on a tangent here,
Do it.
I got into a 2-hour conversation with AI about this, and I'll shorten it. Here's the Reader's Digest version. Centralized organizations that are corrupt and over greedy are the enemy of decentralization and are demonic forces under the spirit of mammon, and angels are part of angelic, how did it describe it? Angelic energy and forces to help liberate human beings out of financial bondage. Decentralization, specifically Caspa, is, according to AI, backed up by biblical principles. It gave me a bunch of Bible verses talking about stewardship and how, even though we think of Caspa as being sovereign, if we follow God, those of us that do, We follow God who's sovereign, but everything that is owned according to the Bible is owned by God. So if we're stewards of that and we want to have the best stewardship we can, we need access to the most sovereign, decentralized money. And AI gave me this entire speech about how Kaspa is the answer, and it is basically the opposite of demonic. Okay. So I went into this big long thing about that. And if anyone wants to talk with me on DM about that, I'd be glad to. I don't want to turn this space into a religious one, but I just want to say you can use AI to really get in depth on theology meets crypto. And it really can take you there and get into some deep discussions. So I just thought I'd share that. There's a lot of stuff I learned that just gave me more conviction that what I'm doing is right. And I even asked it, am I doing something bad if I want the number to go up? Am I not being greedy too? And here's what it said. It reassured me that I'm not the one being greedy. I'm just trying to live a life out of bondage. The ones that are being greedy are the ones that are preventing us from having sound money, such as Binance, who refuse to list it because they have the greed. They have the billions of dollars that want to keep us from having access and more access, I should say, to ways that can give us more financial freedom and liberation. So I just wanted to share that. There's nothing wrong with us wanting to have money. What's wrong are the people who are trying to deny others from having money. That's the
No,
problem.
you
That's the corrupt, that's the demonic stuff.
you just struck a chord with me there, because for me the whole, how I've said the natural state of the free market is deflationary. So, and that, with that concept of understanding, if you agree with that and understand that we've never really lived, especially over the past 300 years, in this debt-based system, as our money is devalued by inflation, by printing, by a central authority deciding the price of money and the supply of money. Um, you are being silently taxed, especially if you're on the lower spectrum of this. And as someone who's experienced being on the upper side of that and owning assets and understanding that most of the world does not own assets. Like, I benefited from owning assets, but the reason my assets went up in nominal terms is because when these central authorities that decide, okay, we're going to expand the money supply, like that, you don't, matter cannot not be created nor destroyed, it's only transferred. So that's just transferring energy from the people that have stored their money in a, in what they believe is a sound system, but obviously it's not, and that being transferred over to someone who owns assets. And we all, we look at Caspa as an asset, and there's other asset classes. So no, I mean, Kara, that speaks to, I don't even think that's just religion. That's just like because I've shared this with God. I look at it as an energy, and I'm not a religious person, but I also understand why religions exist, and I respect people and their views and all that. I do think we're all spiritual beings, and whether you know that or not. And that's a whole nother topic too. But no, you just, like, that really hit home with what I feel within what Caspa solves for the world, right? In this idealistic kind of way to look at what this technology can do for people. It, in a deflationary world, when technology gets better, as we make things in the world better, it literally benefits everybody. And you actually need less. You need less um, money over time, because the wealth gets spread around. As technologies get better, things become cheaper, and your purchasing power continues to go up. But like you said, a central authority like a Binance that gets to control how things are, what assets can be put on there, and not letting, I mean, 3 million hits on a post, the person who was voted the top researcher getting absolutely no shine, shows you what the system is, shows you how you're taking from people that obviously see this, that obviously feel this certain way. So that's, the way we take it to them is we hold this asset and we continue to build on this asset, and understanding that, it's a scarce supply, it's repricing everything in that system. And I love how, Bishop's brought this up for me and like had it hit home for me too, where, he says like we don't really need the exchanges. And it's, to a certain extent I can see that. It would make it easier if they, because more people would be able to access it. But as long as we're here being truth seekers and seeking the truth and spreading, love that, Kara. Thanks for sharing that perspective on asking AI that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that really hit home.
I wanted to throw something out that I found very ironic. Even though angels are centralized, they're fighting for the decentralization of humanity.
That's amazing.
That's what AI
That's
said.
super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems right.
I found that really interesting.
See, and to me, all of that speaks to like how, I talk about how everyone's a reflection of me. Sometimes I say these things, I'm like, I don't know if it lands for people. Um, but maybe I'll post it up here. But have you ever seen a video called The Egg? I want to say Kim Cyber.
No.
Okay, I'll share it with you. Maybe I'll share it here. Um, but it's this whole concept of, that we're all in this egg, and like we're all a reflection and a connection to each other, and we just don't, like if you I've done this, I've intentionally purposefully um gone about my days being like, okay, I'm going to treat everybody today as if they are a version of me, and no matter how they come at me, I'm going to treat them the way I would want to be treated, knowing that they're a reflection of me. You guys should try that out. It makes the day pretty fun. Like it's just pretty fucking cool. I've done that several times actually, like intentionally, but I think most of my days I have interactions like that. There's a lot of synchronicities that happen. There's a lot of connection, you know, um, you get,
I do that all the time, every day.
yeah,
I don't ever not. I
good,
can't turn it off.
good, good. Yeah, well, there's some people out there that are a little bit miserable, and that they look down, but yeah, you be the light.
Dude,
Be the
I
light.
did too many drugs back in the day. I can't turn it off.
Yeah, be the light. Be the light, and smile when people aren't smiling. I mean, I wasn't always like this. I was a pretty intense fucking teenager, and I played sports, and a violent sport. I was a quarterback, but it was an intense time. And I was like that in business too. I was pretty ruthless. And then looking back, I can see why I kind of had to be. But eventually that flipped for me later in life, and obviously, this is, I feel more me, right? But there's a lot of people disconnected from that, Kara. There definitely are, and yeah, that's cool. That's cool that you're like that too. Love it. Recommend it for anybody out there. Try it. Treat people like they're a reflection of you, and obviously, the golden rule, right? And how would you like to be treated in this situation? You do that to other people, woo, you'll
There
experience.
should be a word of caution. There should be a word of caution, though. If you're really weird and you treat other people like they're a reflection of you, they might think that you need to be in a loony bin.
Okay,
So
yeah,
I
true.
just want to say,
No, you're right.
if I treat anybody weird, it means I really see you as a reflection of me. So don't take it in a weird way. I'm just weird.
We're all weirdos. We're all, my
Hey,
son used to say that like when he was younger. He doesn't do it as much anymore. But I'd be like,
Jonathan said I was normal, though. Do you know how weird it is to be called
yeah, that's
normal?
not fun at all. That's boring.
Dude.
Boring. My son used to say that when he was a kid all the time. He just, I mean, he's still a kid, but when he was like 5, 6 years old, he'd be like, "I'm a weirdo. I'd rather be a weirdo." It's just, yeah, way more entertaining.
Being weird is authentic, right? I mean, that's how it is.
Yeah,
But if you start talking to someone and start hallucinating while you're talking to them, at least let them know that you're
you're on some
seeing
shit.
them as a reflection of
Oh, okay.
yourself. See, you think I'm on some shit, but I've only been on some shit that just never stopped after 20 something years.
Yeah,
Right? It's still going, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's still going.
I can't turn it off.
Oh, you got that within. You found it without having to do the outside stuff. It's just within.
Yeah. Onion, do you have anything else you want to share?
Um, no, this is good. I'm just listening. I'm observing. I'm observing. Um, I'm a sponge right now, but I am gonna go to bed soon, but for reasons. But yeah, no, this is great. I was actually gonna ask, what do you mean by m looking at others as yourself? You said? How does
Ooh,
one do? Elaborate, elaborate.
okay, so you have to understand that Juan and I have both had experiences with different plants, and plants can help open the mind to things. And when you have seen the world beyond the physical, you begin to look at people differently than you would without those physical barriers. So, for instance, you and I have had pretty close connections when we talk, and it's just a natural thing. And I don't even know your name. I don't know what you look like. I don't know where you live. I know virtually hardly anything about you. But yet we know enough about each other to have a real tangible connection. It's almost tangible. It's a real
Yeah.
it's a real friendship. There's something really there that's just friendship. It's me seeing you as someone that I can relate with. And I also see you as being a part of the whole of me. And I'll give you an example. Someone put it like this. So take your hand, put your wrist upwards, and put your fingers downwards. And imagine that you're putting your fingers, but not your wrist, into an aquarium full of water. The fish see all 5 fingers. They see them as separate. But if you're looking at someone from far away, you see the whole hand and body as a whole. And humanity is kind of the arm. The fingers are the people. And we can see each other as being complete individuals that are very different from one another. But if you look at it far enough, especially if you're high on drugs, you start to see shit as it really is. So I can still see you as Onion. You're an individual. You have your own personality and attitudes and background and memories and history. But I also see you as someone I can relate with. You're someone that we're on the similar frequency, and so we can just vibe back and forth because it's just innate. It just happens naturally. We don't have to, it's not awkward or weird. We can just talk. Well, that's part of that human energy of relation, right? And you can talk with different people. So, for instance, let's say you're talking to Rajat, who you might go, oh my gosh, this guy is not like me at all.
Oh, I love that guy.
Right? But you guys also follow each other. You guys
Yeah,
also,
Yeah.
because you like each other, because there's something really there that you see something in you that you see in him, but you can't put your finger on it. But it's something that makes
Yeah.
you go, yeah, I like him. I don't know why, but I need to have a connection with him. That's the same thing. It's you seeing something in you and him, even though you're so different, right? That's
Yeah.
how I would explain it. But maybe one has a different view.
no, I mean, I
Oh,
think that's it's a beautiful way to express that, and like Kara said, we have experimented with plants, and I can tell you, Onion, for me, that's what made that's what made my connection to myself and others really make sense, because I'll tell you, prior to that, I was someone who always questioned. I see a lot of my young, you go about like you want to know truth, and then like you'll challenge it, and then you'll give all these facts, and then then you still dive in there with these people that Kara brought up Rajat, but you don't just do it with Rajat, you do it with a bunch of people, and you entertain that, because you're a seeker, and you're somebody who does seek connection. And like Kara said, I don't know your name. I know you as Onion, but understanding that I am, so I love Jim Carrey said this, where he said he once thought he was a man experiencing the world, and then he realized that he is the world experiencing a man. So we are all interconnected, is the best way that I can tell you. I can give you stories for days. I've sat with ayahuasca 10 times. I've done mushrooms a bunch of times. And for me, those were plants. Like, I don't even like the word drugs, because that was a word that was put on those things. But that, I am, for example, I don't know my biological father. I have a pretty crazy story that I've shared, right? I was born in
Yeah.
Panama. Like, there's so many little synchronicities that had to happen in order for me to get to where I am in my life. I legally divorced my parents when I was 17. Um, I suffered quite a bit as a teenager. Like, life was fucking hard, and I was intense for such a long time. And it took, so that's why, again, why I see some of your intensity, but then I love how funny you
Hmm.
are with it. And then obviously getting to where I am in life, I know that I'm just the universe experiencing this version of this man, and you're the same thing over there, and it's the same, with Kara experiencing it as a woman, and like we're all just these expressions of the universe. And being in these plants and understand, like, getting connected. I'll share this really briefly. I mean, I remember the first time I did ayahuasca, and like literally turning into all these different animals. Like, I was a snake, and then all of a sudden I turned into a fish. Then I was in a fucking jungle, and I literally can tell you, it's not like I'm hallucinating that. Like, I went into the energy of these animals, and I was somebody who was so
Whoa.
disconnected from nature, so just like in my head, very successful at the time, business wise, making a shit ton of money, all that. And it was just like, oh, but I fucking forgot what it was really about. That was like experiencing fucking life and just connection, So I hope that gives you a little perspective on a bit of the way of how I look at things as a mirror. It's just like we're just all interwoven with each other. So even, like, that's why I get entertained and I see Gonzo down there. I love when Gonzo goes at people. You guys go at these Bitcoiners, because those Bitcoiners are just, like I said, they're just a reflection of us. They're just on a different timeline. They don't get it yet. They're still
Yeah.
fighting that, oh, we're separate, and there's only one, and all that bullshit. It's like, nah, bro, we're all interconnected, man. We just want you guys to get to some fucking truth. Like, let's stop fucking bickering and going back and forth, and come to that. So that's in the back running all of it. And at the same time, you got to come with the truth, and that's what makes it easy to stay here and be consistent no matter what the hell is happening, as things, as we experience everything. So yeah, man, that's a little bit of perspective on how I see it.
Wow. Dude, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna
Yeah, brother. And
I'm gonna
that's all you
reflect
can
on
do,
that.
by the
That's
way.
all.
One of the big things, because again, I see a lot. I'm telling you, if you met me at your age, very similar. I was like, but and then you're so fucking sweet and like nice to people. But then we get you in the DMs, and I'm like, dude, this is exactly how I fucking was. So here's all I'm saying is, you just have to practice it, brother. Like, practice it, and eventually you'll get there. You'll get there. But you're right where
Hell
you're
yeah, dude.
supposed to be all the time, every single fucking time. That's for everybody. We're always right where we're supposed to be, and if people understood that, we would accomplish things a lot quicker, if people got that right. But unfortunately, we're all on different timelines, different priorities. Again, experiencing the universe as different individuals, but we're all interconnected, man. That's a fact.
Dude, I I love it. That's beneath the surface right there.
Yes, sir.
Damn. I love it. I'm going to try that. Well, thank you, Kara and Juan, for sharing that and the awesome examples.
Yeah, man, this is fun. This is fun always going beneath the surface. It's a little bit different than the other blockchain banter. So I always enjoy these conversations, man. Always gets me going and wakes me up for sure. Even being here on the East Coast, it's about 1 o'clock my time. I see Gonzo just joined. How you feeling, Kara? How you doing?
I'm doing real good. I'm toasty.
Toasty.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I see myself in Rajat.
Me too.
How do you see yourself in him?
Oh, I was gonna make a stupid joke, but no, real talk. I understand what it's like to I mean, he believes in Bitcoin. He sees how sick the world of fiat is, and Bitcoin really is this beautiful idea. And he's married the idea, but he hasn't separated the idea from infrastructure yet. That's where he's at, and that's okay. And that's still an awesome thing, you know. But yeah, I think that's maybe where he's
Yeah,
at.
and you guys follow each other, right?
Yeah, he follows some dude. I like
We gotta give
I
him
just bully.
credit, man, because it's like I shared that he
Yeah.
blocked
Yeah.
me earlier, but I can see why he did. But I see some growth there with Rajat, and he's kind of playing a character.
Yeah,
Is what I see.
I think so.
He's playing this character, and he kind of probably gets a kick out of all of it, just like you get a kick out of it, man. You get a kick out of all this. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's fun.
it is
It's
fun.
fun.
Right. It's entertaining for me. I love reading about, reading all of it. I'm not allowed to participate because I'm blocked, but
No, oh, that stinks.
it's all good.
How has he
But yeah,
blocked you? How's he blocked
I
you,
mean,
Juan, but he hasn't
I
blocked me
think I
and
shared it
Onion?
before. I heard something through the grapevine that he just started talking about Bitcoin, and that initially, he's a finance guy, so I think he had a YouTube video, or he had a YouTube channel prior to, where he used to talk shit about Bitcoin, or that's what I heard. I didn't confirm my sources, and then I posted something, and then he called me out for it, and then I came to my defense, and then he called me a piece of shit because again, I didn't confirm the story. That's the last time I did that. I need to confirm things before I post it, and so he had every right to kind of be upset. And then he said, I don't talk about things that I don't understand. I don't make videos about that. And then I wrote, this was the final straw, but I wrote, well, you don't understand Bitcoin and you talk about Bitcoin. And he's like, fuck you, you're a piece of shit. And then he blocked me. Yeah. So that's how that went down.
Wow.
that's hilarious.
Yeah. That was like three
I've
months
said
ago.
some pretty crazy things to him, and he still lets
That's what I'm
me
saying.
write them.
That's why I'm saying that I see growth, because I see what you guys write him.
Wow.
I see how you go at it,
Yeah.
and now he follows a bunch of Caspians. So yeah,
Oh
he's
yeah.
talking shit, but like he's at least going back and forth, and I think that's
He
progress.
likes
Juan,
my posts. He likes my posts, and I think part of it's because I acknowledge him as a human being beyond his investments. So, for instance, do you remember when he was under investigation for
Yes.
saying that Bitcoin had no
Yep.
risks? I said to him, I said, look, and I didn't even bring up the fact that we disagree on everything. I just left that out. I didn't even mention it. I just said, look, it's kind of hitting below the belt for people to be reporting you for these types of things. I think it's really unfortunate. I'm glad your case is closed. And that's all I said. And he liked my post because, look, not every interaction with somebody who thinks differently than you has to be oppositional or gotcha or being an attention whore or whatever. It's sometimes just about acknowledging people's humanity and saying, hey, I see you. I see what you're going through. I recognize you. And so he hasn't blocked me, and I can still talk shit to him, and he'll occasionally like my post because he knows that I'm not out to get him. Right? And I think that's a key thing here is to just recognize each other. We're all human. Let's see each other in one another. Right? It can take us places. And this is where those bridges and relationships are formed is just recognizing each other. So I just wanted to share that real quick.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I think it moves the conversations forward, right? So seeing everything that all of this stuff is on the internet, and I learn a lot seeing the discourse and the back and forth, and it gives me perspective from where I am in my life. So that's everybody's on their own journey in a different place and understanding Caspa or crypto, and I think it helps, that there'll be people that'll go scrolling and see these conversations, and they'll be able to form their own opinions and their own thoughts on what's out here. So I think it only helps. Like the conversations are important. We don't need to agree on everything. Agreeing to disagree is great. It moves us forward. So I see it all as a net positive for the entire space. So like, yeah, it's necessary. It absolutely is necessary, in my opinion.
You know what's
Yeah.
fascinating is that if you were to put all of us and Rajat, but also Peter Schiff, and we were all to talk about fiat, we would
Right.
all agree. We would all hate fiat. But all of us just have a different solution. Like, oh well, maybe we escape fiat through gold. Maybe we escape it through Bitcoin. Maybe we escape it through Caspa. And then that's where all these issues come, And it's just kind of dumb. But yeah,
And I think that speaks to, like, is there one thing fixes everything? Is that I think that's a legit question, right? It's like we relate to each other based on how we see Caspa, and that's our little ecosystem, our little echo chamber. Um, and then
yeah,
we're gonna find things to support that, and that's cool, right? There isn't one of anything like that in the world on most right. It's just so again, I just think it's really good to continue the conversations, like you said. Yeah, if you got us in a room and we all talked about fiat, like, we know that that's not the solution to helping humanity's problems. And we have all these other tools that are out here. Let's talk truth on this. So if anything, there's that. There's how about we get to the truth on this stuff and stop fucking battling with each other. Let's agree here. So yeah, that's why all these conversations move everything forward, man, and just make things clearer for the masses.
yeah,
Hell yeah.
hell yeah.
That's a really good point, Juan. Thank you for that. And I think we've gone pretty beneath the surface tonight. Juan, do you want to have us start winding down as we approach the next hour here, or do you want to keep going for a while?
Yeah, I probably no. We've been 3 hours at this, so I mean, if anybody wants to come up and um, be a part of the conversation, I'm good for a little bit, and then we can start winding it
Right.
down.
I wouldn't actually mind winding it down now a little
Okay.
bit.
Yeah, then we're
I
good.
have some family that wants to hang out for a little bit.
It's that time of the year. That
So
time of the year.
I
Families
guess
around.
it really is December. It's that holiday season. Um, and what I love about December, though, I'm one of those crazy people. I love Christmas music. I am one of those weirdos that watches and binge watches everything on Hallmark.
That's awesome.
I really did. I am watching Christmas movies and I'm crying to every single predictable scene and not caring. So yeah, I am just living it up and having a great December doing that, and I love it. I'm just having the best time.
That's-
So I guess we could start to wind it down. I guess first I'd like to thank everybody who has listened in on Vivore, who are listening live on this Caspa powered platform, in addition to us being on X. So thank you to the listeners that have popped in on there. And thank you to the listeners who are on X who have popped in and out live, as well as those who are listening on recording. We have a lot of people who come and listen later on recording. So we just want to acknowledge you and say hi. We see you. We appreciate you. And I want to thank Onion for being such a great speaker and going beneath the surface of weighted versus non-weighted transactions and looking at the numbers of how much Bitcoin needs to increase in market cap every year, every halving, and of course, really diving into the numbers of 800,000 transactions, 180 days, bank runs, and all of that. Very important conversations to have. And Juan, you're an excellent co host. I'm so glad that I get to do this with you. And it's always a delight to hear your stories and your knowledge and experience and just to share the different things that you know and the people that you know. And I'm really glad that you got unblocked today by your yoga buddy and Bitcoiner. I think that is really special. I'm really happy for you. And I just also want to just throw a couple things out. We have archived our episodes on YouTube. So if you check out my bio, you can click the link to my YouTube channel and you can see archived episodes that we've done. I don't think I've put up the Thanksgiving episode, but you guys aren't really missing much. We didn't go over too much. It was mostly just a hi, we're here, see you later. So we'll put that one up as well as this one so that you can stay informed and know what's going on, as well as learn different ways to increase adoption through human ways. The other blockchain banter really, I think, focuses on a lot of news updates. They talk with developers, which we're open to as well. But we really focus on the human element. We focus on how people connect to these coins, how it affects humanity, and those types of things. And as always, if you feel like sending a gift or a donation or sharing your wealth in any way, we do have a joint wallet at beneaththesurface.cas. Anything that we receive is split 50-50 between Juan and me. And I just want to say, Casme, who has just left this chat, gave us an NFT, and I'm not sure how to split that 50-50. So for right now, it's just sitting in the wallet, but we do have one in there. And I just want to thank everyone for being here. And Juan, I'm going to just leave you with the mic.
Mic drop by Kara. Okay. Yeah, I really enjoy these conversations on a weekly basis. So we opened up the call considering we hadn't done that, we hadn't done this in a week, and I felt, like, I see you guys as family. We've shared several times here that I see you all as a reflection of me, and we're all in different places in our lives. And thank you, Kaspa Onion, for coming up and sharing your wisdom. I did post on the Jumbotron here. I'm not sure if it stays up once we close out the space, but definitely check out Kaspa Onion when he goes on his rants. They are the most beautiful rants of an intelligent young man who was a Bitcoiner for 8 years and recently went 100% Kaspa. Um, I'm sure all of you on here already follow him, but if you're listening into this, you definitely want to make sure that Caspa Onion's one of your follows. Yeah, Kara, I love running this show with you. Love getting to know you and your stories on a weekly basis. Surface, I love that this blockchain banter is what it is, right? Where we dig in, and we dive in and get to the nitty gritty. I think that's always a beautiful place to go, and it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different than what's out there. And yeah, thank you to all the listeners that stayed on. Thank you to all the listeners that will jump on here later. So we really appreciate you guys, and we look forward to continuing this and continuing that conversation. So again, thanks for being on Blockchain Banter Beneath the Surface, where Caspa does carry the current of truth, vibrating at the frequency of seekers, one conversation at a time. Be humble, be kind, give it time. Love you all. Have a good night.
Good night. Take care.
Peace out. Goodbye.